vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the vote is adopted, 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Can I get a motion to approve? Moved by Hillis, seconded by Amos. Please open the vote.
The vote is open, Mr. Chair. The vote is closed.
The vote is approved, 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. All right, the next item on the agenda is public comment. So I believe, one moment. Thank you so much. So the first person for public comment is Ms. Henry Jordan. Just want to let the body or the community know we had 3 minutes for public comment. As we get close to that 3-minute mark, so around 30 seconds, I will just chime in just to let you know you have 30 seconds left, but the time is also on the boards as well. So Ms. Jordan, please come on up. Good to see you this afternoon. Go ahead.
Thank you. Give me on to the Spirit of Christ. But if any provide not for his own, especially for those of his own house, he has denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. 1 Timothy 5th chapter 8th verse. Jesus said, J. Montgomery, children are not my responsibility. The word created income to help men to be Christ-like men that are responsible men. If I knew he had 10 children under 17, I wouldn't have talked with him. So he lied about it. James went and fathered about 10 or 12 more children because of the income Christ created in me. For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourished it and cherished it, even the Lord, the church. Ephesians 5th chapter 29th verse. The word of Christ says to nourish and cherish your wife as the Lord, the church. Jesus says to marry a man who lacks the example to help other men to be Christ-like men is not his will. Give her the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. Proverbs 31:31. God desires justice for all. Thank Jesus for requesting this in marriage. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints, Revelation 13:10. God will punish those who do evil. Have you led someone into captivity? You shall go into captivity. Have you killed with the law? Then ye must be killed with the sword. Saints seek to set people free to believe in Jesus' word. And God go back of his word. America lead sort of like Putnam, but in a different way.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Our next speaker is Kathy McClure. Ms. McClure, please come up to the podium.
Good afternoon. My name is Kathy McClure. I am a longtime resident of the city of Atlanta, and I'm also a short-term rental owner. And I'm also here in my capacity as Vice President of Amstra, the Atlanta Metro Short-Term Rental Alliance. Our members are short-term rental owners, property managers, and those affiliated with the services that we provide to visitors to the city of Atlanta. I'm here to speak in support of item number 5 on the agenda, which would grant an extension of the enforcement deadline on the current Atlanta short-term rental ordinance from April 1st to June 1st. We're asking for this extension because our members are expressing deep concerns about their ability to comply. We've been afforded exactly 30 days to comply with this ordinance, to submit a very complex application, which includes deeds, legal affidavits, many legal affidavits, documents that a lot of people can't find and don't even know what they are, We've hosted webinars with our members to help them, assist them, and yet we are still hearing people struggle with all of this. We are hopeful that this bill will pass so that we can give our hosts some breathing room to comply, to apply, and comply with this ordinance. Currently, there are only roughly around 400, maybe, I think it's around 400 as of yesterday, applications that have been submitted. This means there are actually nearly 10,000 short-term rental units in the city of Atlanta with 2 days to go. This leaves thousands of people who have not submitted their applications. They are subject to serious penalties, including fines and imprisonment, and this is, in our view, a mistake to allow this to occur. It will create a huge enforcement problem for the city, and we would prefer that we have the opportunity to communicate with the planning department, that we have the opportunity to work with the planning department to help our members submit their applications. And without this extension, we will be in a serious pickle. We will be faced with fines and penalties, and perhaps even having our listings removed from the platforms. Thank you for your consideration of these matters, and we hope that you will give us more time so that we can comply with the ordinance.
Thank you, Ms. McClure. All right, our next speaker is Hallie Ford. Ms. Ford, please come up to the podium.
Hi, Mr. Chair. I'm actually just here for the hearing to the appointment of the Pedestrian Bicycle Commission, so I think I go later. Is that correct?
That is perfectly fine.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Our next speaker is Benjamin Gross.
Council members, thank you for your time today. My name is Benjamin Gross. I did my undergraduate here in Atlanta. I'm a resident here in Atlanta. I'm raising my family in Atlanta, and we have started a business in Atlanta. That business is afforded by the opportunity to generate rental income. We were able to start this business because of the thriving short-term rental economy that exists here in Atlanta. That short-term rental economy is approximately 10,000 short-term rental units. And I cannot stress enough that we all want the same thing. These bad actors who leverage these short-term rentals as ways to throw parties, to create events that they can then monetize, nobody wants. I don't want that. There's not a member of Amstra that wants that, and any proprietor of a short-term rental that I know does not want that. Since the applications have opened on January 1st, we've seen 392 applications made. That's as of this morning. I just pulled the data. Of those 392 applications, less than 25% or 1/4 have been issued permits. That means of the total supply of 9,742 short-term rentals, less than 1% have registered, less than 1% have been issued a permit. This is an industry that provides jobs. This is an industry that provides a substantial amount of tax revenue. This is an industry that makes Atlanta a destination for film, a destination for corporations, and a destination for vacation. I would like to strongly voice my support for delaying the enforcement of this ordinance so that we may have a more meaningful conversation to align and achieve our objectives, because we all want the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. Before we move to our next speaker, I do want to acknowledge Councilmember Michael Julian Bond is with us, and then I also want to acknowledge Councilmember Antonio Lewis, who's in the audience with us today. Next speaker is Prophet Tony Curtis Harrison. Please join us at the podium.
Hello, how's everybody doing today? It's a great day to be alive. Again, I am Prophet Tony Curtis. Tony is my nickname, Harrison Martin. Again, I'm going to talk about homelessness in the black community and the wealth gap of black and white in Atlanta and Fulton County, DeKalb County. The average black man makes $15 an hour. The average white guy makes $25 an hour. So you can see the wealth gap in 2022 in Atlanta, Georgia, Fulton County. When we say this is a land of prosperity, you know, everybody making a lot of money, and you got homeless people living under these bridges and dying in these bridges. And we just celebrate, y'all celebrated gay whatever out here, but 40% of Atlanta is gay youth. So why is y'all's help at with these gay youth out here living underneath bridges? So you just celebrated gay life. But you got I'm walking past gay girls and boys living on the street. But you just celebrated gay life. So now, that type of stuff, guys like me is upset about. Now, you take the money, the finances that is awarded, because I'm doing my homework, I'm doing my research, and I'm talking to lawyers, for homeless emergency, not warm shelters. We need some cooling shelters as well, because it's going to get hot this summer. So if people are dying inside these shelters, and people don't want to go inside of shelters in the wintertime, don't you think there's a problem with that shelter? Do y'all don't think that? I mean, y'all got degrees, right? So you think of a person that's it's 30 below, 25 degrees. They don't want to go inside of a shelter. They rather sleep outside. Y'all don't think it's a problem inside the shelter? I mean, that's like common sense. But yet, you have a problem with the guy that's coming to the podium telling you about the issues. So I'm hearing from a lot of authorities and other people that city council is the part of the problem. So you're going to have a problem with me coming to the podium, so you're going to make it hard on my life because I'm coming to the podium. So there's laws to go along with that, and I know the law. And I know lawyers too. Trust me on that one.
30 seconds.
So you're making it hard on the guys that's coming to the podium, I heard. And a lot of people are not here that was here at this podium 2 years ago, before the pandemic. So is that related to the city council? So are y'all causing problems with people that are coming to this podium, bringing issues to this podium that y'all don't like? That's what's going on. That's what people is saying. So we need to know that. And maybe authority need to know that too, because if I feel discriminated against,
Harrison, that's your time.
then I'm going to press charges.
Thank you, sir. All right, next speaker is Ryan Toth. Mr. Toth, please come to the podium.
Hello, my name is Ryan Toth. I came down today to support extending the short-term rental ordinance for multiple reasons. I guess I would consider myself an entrepreneur, but not really by choice. I had worked in hospice for 10 years before COVID, and then I was laid off my job. And my small short-term rental business turned from, I live in Atlanta, by the way, Atlanta resident. I have been for 10 years. My small short-term rental company turned from 3 properties into 60 pretty quickly. All in commercial properties, by the way. So my problem with the ordinance right now, it isn't just extending it, it's defining it more clearly. I've went to apply, I want to apply. I want to put my properties in conjunction with what the city wants, but I don't know what the city's motivation is. I also don't know how the city is going to regulate this ordinance. So if I apply, and I don't think anyone else is taking it seriously. We have 10,000 hosts in Atlanta. As some of the other speakers today have mentioned, there's only been about 500 people that have applied for it. I think it's because it's changed so many times. There's been amendments, it's been extended. So people look at this as like, oh, well, it's just another thing. But so my business changed from a hospice representative into, I guess, this entrepreneur. I went to apply. Again, it was very clunky, confusing, and quite frankly, I just couldn't find my properties on there. So what am I going to do? I really just sit here now just asking the committee to kind of consider that. Also consider the building that we have properties in. Let me reference one other thing. One thing that's very confusing about the way the ordinance is written right now is it said you can rent your primary residence plus one. But you have to register your primary residence. You have to send certified letters to your neighbors telling them that you're going to do short-term rentals. I don't have any intention of short-term renting my primary residence. I would like to do the plus one. I would like to do more than that if it's possible. But why am I going to send certified letters to my neighbors telling them I'm going to do short-term rentals if I have no intention of short-term renting the property? That's one of the major flaws I'm seeing in this. And not just to begin with. There's tons of other things I'm seeing in the way the application process applies. I also represent a group of people in a condominium downtown Atlanta with 330 units in it. There's 330 people in that building that's in the hotel district. We primarily use this building for short-term rentals. We have an abundance of owners. They're all individually owned and operated. Some are commercial, some are just their side jobs. Some people live there and rent it on the side. But I don't understand. This would prevent the majority of those owners from being able to do this short-term renting. They paid a premium in these spots to be able to short-term rent.
Mr. Todd, that's your time.
All right. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rich Monroe.
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you for having me today. My name is Rich Monroe. I am the president of Amstra, the Atlanta Metro Short-Term Rental Alliance. Besides, helping folks with navigating the application process and the ordinance, we're also an association that does best practices. And part of those best practices is, using technology to manage our businesses. And there's noise detection devices that we use to make sure that we are proactive to prevent a lot of the parties that occur. We have a quiet time from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. And at any point in time, instead of the neighbors calling to complain, we are proactively communicating to our guests that may be having a disturbance during those times. We also obviously have other technology involved with electronic locks to make sure that those codes change for each guest. And we do additional vetting. So we have guest portals besides the platforms that are available that requires additional verification of those guests that come in. And so we would love the opportunity to work more with the council members on talking about how we can work together on accommodating for our members. Most of our members are much like Mr. Toth, who just spoke. They're small business owners, and this is their livelihood. And so myself as well, this is my full-time business, my wife and I. We manage properties for other hosts, and we also have properties that we own as well. And so I honestly believe, given a delay, an extension of this deadline, it will give us all an opportunity to talk about some other alternate solutions that some of the other jurisdictions have done. Chicago is one example of that. They actually have a business license process for folks that want to have multiple listings, more than just their primary residence plus one. Orlando, Orange County is another example of that. There's a separate process for folks that have multiple listings. And so I welcome the opportunity we've already spoken to a lot of the council members, and it seems as though there's the willingness to sit down and talk through some of those issues. As we represent our membership, the vast majority of our members are folks that have 1 to 4 listings, and so they are prevented or kind of knocked out from being able to function going forward. We've all talked about the numbers of listings that are out there. One of the things that I feel the starting point of this legislation was, I was actively involved back in 2018 and 2019 with the state level study. At that time, there was information released that about 90% are 1 listings in Atlanta. That was in 2018. I'm pretty confident that based on our data that we have of our members, that the number of folks that have more than 2 listings is much greater than just 10% of that population. And so based on the tax revenue and based on the livelihood and the jobs we've talked about, again, we welcome the opportunity and we support item number 5. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe. Before we move to the next item on the agenda, I believe Councilmember Antonio Lewis, you had a couple words you wanted to share with the body.
Thank you, Chair. So I came to speak against the short-term rental bill. I'm against the short-term rental extension for many reasons. But one of them is if a company didn't meet the deadline, it's unfortunate. But it shows a few things. Either they didn't have their business together to meet the deadline for some reason, whether that be a backup in the license renewals, or just forgetting to do it on time, or it's on us as the city. Us not being ready to receive, review, and put the applications in. The planning department is supposed to regulate and endorse this, as some folks have asked who's going to regulate this. The planning department is. My first question to the planning department when they came in front of this body was, do you have the resources to do your job? They told me they needed more people. So that's a capacity issue that they've already told us that they have. So with this added responsibility that no one seems to know who's supposed to regulate it, I don't think that they're prepared for it currently. Lastly, even developers are asking how we're going to regulate this, and that's scary. I'm afraid that the short-term rentals will also increase the houselessness in Atlanta as property owners will switch over from the long-term rentals to the short-term rental for the quick bang when huge events happen in Atlanta, as we've seen before. And lastly, this extension alone, this paper alone of an extension is a breach in the protections that the city council placed last year to protect folks. So before 1 year, we haven't even had the opportunity to actually see this happen yet. And within 1 year, we're already trying to extend it. And that just lets you know more's to come, more things are to come. So I want to say I speak against that. I think we need to keep the deadline or even protect our folks even more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis. And the next item on the agenda is technically presentations. I know there's a couple of presenters here, but we also have a couple of folks who are here to talk about a couple of appointments they've been appointed to. And I want to go ahead and move that portion of the agenda up to give those communications an opportunity to happen first. Any objection from the body? Councilmember Hillis. Well, we'll do that after the communications. And just so for the public's awareness, one of the items that is going to be coming before us for second reading, that presenter is also here on a time deadline. So after we do this next portion, we'll go into that. So seeing no objections to doing the communications first, Ms. Hallie Ford, please come to the podium.
Mr. Chair, may I sound that legislation?
Yes, please, Ms. Lindo.
Yes, that's 22C 5041. This is a communication from council members Jason Winston, District 1, Amir Faroki, District 2, Byron D. Amos, District 3, Jason Dozer, District 4, and Michael Julian Bond, Post 1 at Large, appointing Ms. Hallie Ford to serve as a member of the Pedestrian and Bicycle Planning Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. Ms. Ford, thank you for joining us today. Please tell you a few things about yourself, why you're interested in this particular appointment, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of this committee. I'm honored to be speaking here in front of you all today about this appointment. I wanted to briefly introduce myself and cover some of the objectives that I have for this commission moving forward. So my name is Hallie Ford. I'm a resident of Home Park in District 3. I moved to Atlanta in 2016 to work towards my master's in aerospace engineering at Georgia Tech, and I graduated in 2018 with my master's and my MBA. I now work as a data scientist in Tech Square, and I primarily am focused in the healthcare industry, and I'm focused on providing equitable and accessible and affordable care to patients in the southeastern United States. It was always my dream to come to Atlanta and to come to Georgia Tech. In fact, I was accepted into the #2 engineering program coming out of high school, but my parents advocated against moving to Atlanta because they said it was unsafe. But I did finally get the opportunity to be here, obviously, and it was a dream come true for me. As I was moving here, my dad came along with me and we were looking for places to live, and as we were touring the city, one of the first things that we noticed was that there were no bike lanes anywhere we were going. And that might be kind of a silly observation, but we were coming from Austin, Texas, where I grew up, and the biking and cyclist community there is much more common, much more visible. So it was a stark difference to come to Atlanta and just see all of the differences in the Atlanta road construction that didn't accommodate cyclists. Over the last several years, I've become accustomed to the way cyclists and pedestrians are treated on the streets of Atlanta. I was almost unfazed every time a car has bumped into me while I'm running throughout the city, or all the near misses and collisions. Those events were normalized. We all complain about the Atlanta drivers. It's a constant in my conversations with my running buddies. But I honestly never thought about what I could do to change the environment around me that was making everything so unsafe. That was until 5 months ago on this exact date that the love of my life was killed, when a driver did not yield to a signalized crosswalk and hit my boyfriend as he legally crossed in a crosswalk. And I'm very careful with choosing my words here because there is an ongoing criminal investigation. The absolute heartbreak and the frustration that has come after this incident has compelled me to take a more active role in our community's efforts to protect cyclists and pedestrians. There are so many facets to this problem. There are so many angles that we can take to protect people before their safety is jeopardized. Whether it be street design or changing speed limits, tactical urbanism, shared spaces, or increasing enforcement, we shouldn't debate what is the most perfect solution, but enact immediate measures to ensure the safety of Atlantans, because we are in the midst of a public safety crisis on our roads that is well documented in the fatality statistics, but largely ignored in the media, the State Department of Transportation, and other city departments. And while this is the Bicycle and Pedestrian Planning Commission, I think it's imperative that we look at this issue from end to end and promise that crash victims and their families are treated with dignity and our existing laws are taken seriously to hold people accountable when they kill and injure pedestrians and cyclists. In the last 5 months, I have pored over every Georgia traffic code, every Vision Zero principle and case study, our own city's efforts to implement complete streets and their shortcomings. Trust me when I tell you that I have no shortage of ideas for how we can authentically commit to making biking and walking enjoyable and safe. With my background in data science and engineering, I hope to bring an evidence-based and data-backed approach to making recommendations for this committee. I look forward to seeing this commission grow and working with each of you to develop Atlanta into a city that parents are not afraid to send their children out into, and one that protects our most vulnerable populations that are just trying to use a sidewalk, a crosswalk, a bike lane to go about their lives and get home to the people that love them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. I'll actually go ahead and make a motion to approve. Can I get a second? Motion by Dozier, seconded by Winston. Any discussion? Hearing none, please open the vote.
Vote is open. The vote is closed.
The vote is favorable, 6 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. Thank you so much, Ms. Ford, and thank you for your service to the city of Atlanta. Councilmember Bond, you're acknowledged.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say sorry for your loss, but your heartfelt commitment, as stated here today, leads me to believe that you will do great works on behalf of the city, and it is an honor to support you today.
Thank you, Councilman Bond.
I echo those remarks. Thank you so much, Ms. Ford.
Chairman, that's your word. Ms. Ford, thank you. This all started with an email from her to me about this commission. So it shows when individual people want to make a difference and a change in the city to step up. And it all started with an email, so here you are. And we're looking forward to ensuring that you're on this commission and we can actually begin to get more things and better things done for the pedestrians in the city. So thank you for that email.
Thank you for your support, Councilman.
Hey, Councilman Amos. All right. The next item is number 2. Mr. Schinneberger, you can come up, and then Ms. Linda, if you can go ahead and read the caption.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's 22C 5042. This is a communication from Council Members Liliana Bakhtiari, District 5, Alex Bond, District 5, Howard Shook, District 7, Mary Norwood, District 8, Matt Westmoreland, Matt Westmoreland, Post 2 at Large, reappointing Mr. Andrew Schreckenberger to serve as a member of the Housing Commission. This appointment is for a term of 2 years to begin retroactively on March 5th, 2022 and expire March 4th, 2024.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. Mr. Schinneberger, thank you so much for joining us. If you could say a couple words about yourself, for at least for us newbies who haven't had a chance to work with you, and tell us why you would like to be reappointed.
Thank you, Councilmember Dozier, and good afternoon, council members. My name again is Andy Schneggenberger. I live at 474 Haas Avenue in the East Atlanta neighborhood. I have a background as an architect. I transitioned into the nonprofit sector advocating for neighborhood-based community development and affordable housing through a fellowship that I did during the early 2000s with the Historic District Development Corporation over in the King District. After that, I directed a nonprofit that advocated for the community development sector and nonprofit affordable housing sector here in Atlanta. And since then, I have transitioned once again into helping those nonprofits develop affordable housing on their own. I provide development capacity through a consulting role with a number of nonprofits here in Atlanta. I've been, since that fellowship that opened my eyes to not only the change that the city was and continues to experience, but also the impact on our low-income and moderate-income neighbors, even more so now. I realize that for us to be a sustainable city and a just city, we need to make sure that growth happens with all of us and not at the expense of so many. I realize that some of these words are often spoken and can be taken as rote, but they are real. Bring up an example. I think just yesterday, the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta released a note saying that for the first time, the Atlanta metro region is considered to be unaffordable for the first time. So despite the work that so many of us have been doing over the last 20 years and even longer, now the city and the metro region have earned that designation. And what that refers to is the balance and the dynamic between the moderate household income and the moderate home price, and the ability for households to afford or to pay for their living without paying more than what's typically considered to be 30% of their household income. So I think that's if there needs to be one, that's kind of a wake-up call for some of us, but I'm also grateful to acknowledge that many of the council members who are now seated have paid a lot of attention to this issue, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you as we go forward to find solutions for how to manage the city's growth in an affordable way.
Thank you, Mr. Snickenberger. Councilman Westmoreland, you're acknowledged.
Yeah, Liliana's not here, so I'll make a motion to approve this, and in so doing, comment that last year in January of 2021, Council passed a $100 million housing bond, and the support of the Housing Commission individually and in rallying the housing troops proved really important in October, November, and December of 2020 in getting that across the finish line. And the creation of the Housing Trust Fund in December of 2021 was the result of a beer that the two of us had. So appreciate your leadership so far. Clearly, based on yesterday's article, a whole lot more to do, and time is not our friend, just like construction costs. So thank you for your service.
Second. Motion by Westmoreland, second by Bond. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, favorable 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Thank you, Mr. Schenkenberger, and thank you for your continued service to the city of Atlanta.
Thank you.
All right, the next item, number 4, actually,
We're pulling the 2 from out.
so we actually have 2 communications that we're going to pull from held, which is number 22C-5024, and number 27, which is 22-C-5036. All right, next is number 3.
Mr. Chair, yes, if I may read item number 22. This is 22C-5024. This is a communication from Tanya Greer, County Clerk, to the Fulton County Board of Commissioners, submitting the appointment of Ms. Natalie Horn to serve on the Atlanta Beltline Tax Allocation Advisory Committee. This appointment is for a term of 2 years. I believe Ms. Horn is here.
Thank you so much, Ms. Horn. Go ahead.
Hey everyone, I am Natalie Horn. I have lived in the Atlanta area my entire life. Went to Georgia Tech for undergrad and lived in Midtown for about 12 years. Recently moved to the Reynoldstown neighborhood 2 years ago. This is kind of my first introduction into getting more involved in the community. I've seen firsthand the impact that the Beltline has made on our city, and I'm excited to get more involved in my community.
Thank you, Ms. Horn. Any comments from the body? Motion to approve by Bond, second Westmoreland. Please open the vote.
The vote is open, Mr. Chair. The vote is closed.
Thank you.
Favorable 6 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. Congratulations, Ms. Horn, and look forward to working with you. All right, Mr. Izzard, John Izzard. I apologize if I mispronounced your last name. Please come to the podium, and Ms. Lindo, if you could read that caption.
Mr. Chair, that's communication 22C-5036. This is a communication from Council President Doug Shipman reappointing Mr. John Izzard to serve as a member of the Little Five Points Community Improvement District. This appointment is for a term of 4 years to begin retroactively on February 17, 2019 and expire February 16, 2023.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. Mr. Izzard, please tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested.
Certainly. Yes, I'm John Izzard, interested in continuing to serve on the Little 5 Point CID. I'm a resident of Emmons Park. I am a native Atlantan. I've been in the commercial real estate business for 40 years with Cushman and Wakefield. I've been active over the years with civic matters, and in particular with smart growth. I chaired the Georgia Conservancy during the the beginning of their blueprint series that sort of set the stage for bringing people back into the urban core and making it more livable. I also was chairman of Piedmont Park Conservancy during the period when we were conceiving its expansion, which has now come to pass, and raising the money to make those improvements to the park. I'm interested in Little 5 Points because it's around the corner from where I live. It's an interesting place that everybody loves, but it's not as welcoming as it could be to all citizens of Atlanta, and I don't want to change it. I want to make it safer and more friendly.
Thank you, Mr. Izzard. I'll make the motion to approve. Can I get a second? Second. Second by Bond. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, it has been accepted or favorable, 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Congratulations, Mr. Izzard, and thank you for your continued service to the City of Atlanta.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. So before we go back to presentations, as I mentioned earlier, I would like to take item number 9, just to accommodate a scheduling conflict from Ms. LaShandra Burks, the Deputy Chief Operating Officer. Any objections to that from the body? Seeing none, please proceed.
That's 22-0-1255. This is an ordinance by Council Members Justin Hillis, Michael Julian Bond, Matt Westmoreland, Keisha Sean Waits, Jason Winston, Amir Faroki, Byron Amos, Jason Dozier, Liliana Bakhtiari, Alex Wan, Howard Shook, Mary Norwood, Andrea O'Boone, and Marcy Collier Overstreet, authorizing the mayor or his designee or the chief procurement officer or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to acquire from the Conservation Fund over 75 acres of land, which was the former site of the Chattahoochee Brick Company, for the purposes of increasing parks, green space, and watershed land in the city, and authorizing the mayor or designee or the chief procurement officer or his designee on behalf of the city to execute all documents necessary to acquire the property, authorizing acquisition, due diligence, closing costs, signage, demolition, and the site stabilization, and waiving Section 2-1541 of Article 10 of the Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, and for other purposes. And Mr. Chair, we do have a substitute that's been handed out.
Colleagues, I believe the substitute was sent before or during the meeting. I'll go ahead and make the motion to substitute. Can I get a second? Second. Motion by Dozier, second by Bond. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. And Mr. Chair, just to clarify, the substitute provided the financial information about the cost of the property, and that was not included in the original legislation.
All right, thank you. The motion to substitute is approved, 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Before we move on to Ms. Burks, Councilmember Hillis, I'll give you a chance to speak to this legislation.
Yeah, just first wanted to make a note, and I should have reached out to Ms. Lindo, but all council members sign on to this, so I believe Councilmember Lewis's name needs to be added back into the legislation, so I'll make that amendment. Second.
We have an amendment by motion to amend by Councilmember Hill, second by Bond. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
And the motion to amend has been approved, 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Ms. Burks, please, if you have anything to add to this legislation, we'd love to hear from the administration on this.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Dozier, and to all the members of the CDHS committee. And thank you also for accommodating some of the conflicts that we had today. But the ordinance before you allows the city, as been stated, to acquire 75 acres of land, which is the former site of the Chattahoochee Brick Company. This acquisition will allow us to protect the property from development create a park, and memorialize the events that occurred on this property. As many of you may know, the Chattahoochee Brick Company was owned by former Atlanta Mayor James W. English. The brick company supplied material for the construction of houses and buildings in Atlanta by using leased convicts, working mostly African-American men under the terrible conditions and some even to their death. This property is also located along the Chattahoochee River. In February of 2021, the city challenged the proposal to build a fuel terminal on this site with the State Federal Surface Transportation Board to stop that development. Quickly thereafter, Norfolk Southern decided to abandon the fuel terminal project. Over the past year plus, the Conservation Fund and the city have worked hand in hand closely with the property owner to reach an agreement on this particular purchase. The acquisition has been made possible by the Conservation Fund, who worked on our behalf to make this deal a reality. The city and the Conservation Fund have partnered in other property acquisitions for conservation purposes, notably Lake Charlotte, which occurred in 2019. We expect to work with the neighbors and the larger Atlanta community to create a plan for the Chattahoochee Brick property, one that includes a memorial to the history of the property, protects and restores floodplain areas, and creates a public park on the Chattahoochee River. This was truly an interdepartmental collaborative. I have to give a special thanks to the departments of law, finance, planning, watershed management, parks and recreation, and Dean. A special thanks also to Stacy Funderburk and the Conservation Fund for their tireless work for making and seeking the support of the Candida Fund also for $4 million to aid in this purchase. And I would also be remiss if I did not thank the leadership of Lincoln Energy for their willingness to work very closely with the city to make us the owner of this land. Mayor Dickens has had the opportunity to meet with the Chattahoochee Brick descendants, and we are working very closely with them on the second annual Sacred Site ceremony, which is scheduled to take place on April 16th. With all of this information before you and with all council members who have signed on to this ordinance, we actually ask your approval on this history-making legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. Councilman Hillis, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, just want to echo what Ms. Burke stated, and this has been a long process. Going back over a decade, the city actually missed an opportunity to acquire this land. And then a few years later, when I was just a neighborhood leader and this seat was occupied by then Councilmember Moore, a proposal came out of left field for Lincoln Terminal in about 2015, 2016, where they were seeking a special use permit to build this fuel terminal right on the Chattahoochee River at the mouth of Proctor Creek. It's probably one of the largest attended MPUD meetings that I had ever been to. It was voted down. The council that I wasn't on at the time voted that special use permit down. They went through the courts. Then they sought other measures to try to implement their goals, but we rose as a council and as the previous administration, which Ms. Burks was also a part of, under Mayor Bottoms, and with all the departments you thanked, I've really got to highlight the work of the law department and fighting that, taking it to the Surface Transportation Board, and really fighting for what the people wanted and what Atlanta really deserves, and it isn't a fuel terminal on a historic site, also a historic neighborhood, as Ms. Burks mentioned, where people weren't just enslaved after slavery was long outlawed, but also passed away there. So I'm looking forward to finally acquiring this land for the city and efforts to bring our city to its river, over 75 acres that is going to hopefully one day be a memorial park, more green space for those who enjoy and I'm looking forward to going through that process with Mayor Dickens and the administration and also the community, involving them and to what we really want to see on the 75 acres that's right there on the Chattahoochee River at the mouth of Proctor Creek. So I'll make a motion to approve as substituted and as amended.
Second. Motion has been made by Hillis, second by Bond. Please open the vote.
The vote is open, Mr. Chair. The vote is closed.
Motion is favorable, 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Before we move forward, Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to explain my vote and wanted to congratulate Councilmember Hillis, the administration, and even Norfolk Southern for what role they played in making this happen. You know, I love Turner Classic Movies, and I happened to catch Gone with the Wind on Sunday, and I turned to the channel at the moment where Scarlett O'Hara was chiding her doomed husband, Tom Kennedy, about using convict labor to build their fortune. City of Atlanta, the South, the United States, it can be said here truthfully that it was not only built upon the labor of those who were enslaved, the labor of those who have been imprisoned and then leased as slaves. In Atlanta, that story is true, not just, rhetorically, but actually physically. Most of the red bricks you see around the city, you see around the AU Center, the historic areas, the red brick sidewalks that we love so much were formed there by Mayor English's insidious company. He built literally with the hands of those, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the death. And now we are at this Kairos moment to make it right. It is a blessing for us to be here. It is a blessing to put these souls to rest, and hopefully more greatness, more solace, more remembrance, so to let those dry bones that are out there to be taken to the river, just like the old gospel song says. Take us to the river to finally be cleansed and to let dry bones live again.
Thank you, Councilmember Bond. Councilmember Hillis.
Thank you, Councilmember Bond, for those words. I just wanted to finally say, now this has been approved by the committee, just thank my colleagues on this committee, all of my colleagues on council that signed on to this, and also the prior council, because this latest push really started back in 2020 into 2021 when I authored a letter to Norfolk Southern and Lincoln Terminal, Lincoln Energy, to really rethink this and make sure that they knew about the history and the importance of this site. And so, while they were, I guess you would say, foes at the time, they've turned out to be partners. I want to thank those at Lincoln Energy and at Norfolk Southern for coming to the table with the city and really getting this worked out. And looking forward again to seeing this become a park and a green space that we can enjoy and memorialize the atrocities that happened there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hillis, and thank you, Ms. Burks. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, we're going to real quick go back to communications. Item number 3, Ms. Linda, if you could read the caption.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's 22C 5043. This is a communication from Council President Doug Shipman appointing Ms. Nedra DeWiller to serve as a member of the Atlanta Urban Design Commission in the Urban Planner category. This appointment is for a term of 3 years.
Thank you. There's actually a recommendation to hold this, so I'm going to make the motion to hold. Can I get a second? Second from Hillis. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote opposed?
All right, the motion is approved, 5 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. My understanding is the appointee will appear on April 26th, just for the public's awareness. All right, moving into presentations. Our first presenter will be the Department of Parks and Recreation, Commissioner Dargle. Good to see you this morning, or afternoon. It's morning somewhere.
Thank you, Chairman Dozier and members of the council. These are exciting times in Parks and Recreation. I wanted to stand up and cheer for the last agenda item for the acquisition of the Chattahoochee brick property. So thank you very much for your support in that. I am John Dargle, and I'm your City of Atlanta Parks and Recreation Commissioner, and I am joined today for a brief overview of the department with our Deputy Commissioner Doug Voss and Director Ramondo Davison of our Recreation Department. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a brief overview of the department, recent park and recreation facility improvements, delivery of our Activate ATL Comprehensive Parks and Recreation Master Plan that you should have at your seat. Also, an introduction of our 5-year strategic plan, and then an overview of our Resumption of Services and our spring and summer recreation services. I am truly grateful and honored and excited for the exceptional work, and want to recognize our Parks and Recreation Department team for their selfless work every day to improve the quality of life of the City of Atlanta. Do I have the controls? Okay. Just a brief overview of who we are for those new members of council, and we look forward to the opportunity to meet with you one-on-one to take a deeper dive of the organization moving forward. Over the last 2 years, when we worked on development of our 10-year vision for Parks and Recreation, we developed a new mission statement, a vision, guiding principles, strategic actions moving forward the organization. Our new mission is to provide equitable access to outstanding recreational, natural, and cultural experiences that enhance the health and well-being of all, with an emphasis on equitable access. And the vision is to make recreation and parks the heart and soul of Atlanta. We are responsible for 4 key core areas within the City of Atlanta. That is to maintain clean, safe, and accessible parks and recreation facilities. We're also responsible for providing and promoting exceptional recreational services and programs at a number of our parks and recreation facilities. We're responsible for planning and designing parks and recreation facilities to meet community needs. And we are responsible for communicating and marketing the value and benefits of the Parks and Recreation for the City of Atlanta. In keeping up with our core services, here are a few of the park improvements that we were able to complete over the last year or two. Just a quick snapshot of some of these improvements includes the Grant Park Gateway Project in Grant Park. Recently, we were recognized as the world's first project to be simultaneously LEED Silver certified, Sites Gold certified, and Parks Smart Bronze certified. A remarkable effort both from our team and the development team and contractors who worked out at Grant Park. Cook Park was recently recognized for 2 outstanding achievements: the Great Place Award by the Atlanta Regional Commission's 2021 Regional Excellence Awards for Environmental Design, and the 2021 Merit Award for Landscape Urban Development. A great accomplishment out there as well at Cook Park. Westside Park, as you know, recently working alongside Watershed Management in the development of our largest park in the system. Recent ribbon cuttings and activities out there, including the closing ceremonies of Black History Month with Mayor Dickens. Also working alongside Councilmember Shook's office in a upcoming ribbon cutting out at Indian Creek. And then as we took over operations and management of our tennis centers, we did a deep dive in the assessment of each one of our tennis centers and have made some significant improvements there, to include McGee Tennis Center improvements as shown on the slide. And then at West Cascade Park, a recent acquisition off of Danforth Road, and then making some improvements for trail improvements as well as accessibility, and working alongside Department of Transportation to ensure a safe access to West Cascade Park. Also, we organized, along with council member, an advisory council group to oversee the improvements and development of that park moving forward. Cone Park, really proud of the work we did alongside State Farm and Atlanta Hawks Corporation to develop the Good Neighbors room. First State Farm multi-sensory room in the country, in collaboration with the Atlanta Hawks and State Farm, is really exceptional for our therapeutic recreation program at Cone Park. Now, just an overview of our master plan. This is a comprehensive master plan that we hope to activate ATL over the next 10 years to improve the Parks and Recreation system moving forward. This also is a living document. As you can see, please take the time to read through this document that outlines several goals and objectives and strategic actions that we plan to take over the next 10 years. This plan was also a significant amount of public input occurred with the development of this plan alongside Park Pride through a generous donation from the Robert Woodruff Foundation that allowed us to go out to the public in 2 phases to ensure that we heard what the public wanted and saw in our Parks and Recreation system. As I mentioned earlier, the plan identified a new mission, guiding principles, a vision, and also identified 3 goals. Number 1 is to invest in Atlanta's Parks and Recreation assets, not only to include our physical investments in our parks and our product, but also our people, our business partners as well. Secondly is to connect Atlanta's Parks and Recreation resources. Again, not only looking at physically connecting our parks through trails and other safe, accessible means, but also connecting our patrons and visitors through marketing and communications. And then thirdly is to grow our Parks and Recreation system. As Atlanta grows over the next 10 to 20 years, our intentions and focus will be on advancing Parks and Recreation through equity, diversity, and inclusion. I want to take this time to really just thank everyone that participated in the public engagement process. We had over 10,000 responses, worked with the 72-member advisory committee, and we're grateful for that input from several different organizations throughout the city, as well as our friends and other city departments. Our tagline has been Recreation and Parks for All, means hearing from all. And I'm confident that the public engagement strategy embodied that message through our 10-year master plan. And then the Activate ATL plan was adopted late last year in December of 2021. And since then, there's been 3 actions that we've shown moving forward. And that first one was the development of our 5-year strategic plan, which is a companion document to begin the implementation of the actions outlined in the Activate ATL plan moving forward. Over the next few months, we plan to share the final version with staff to empower the entire department with an understanding of the strategic plan and recommendations in connection to the 10-year Activate ATL plan. Secondly, we're working with the Mayor's Office of Innovation and Performance on development or creation of a project tracker dashboard that will detail the master plan's key performance indicators and also assign staff assignments. And then upcoming quarterly updates, I'll provide details behind some of our key performance indicators moving forward. We also received huge assistance in broadening the access to our Parks and Recreation system when the Mayor Dickens appointed the Green Space Advisory Council. That council is made up of 13 members throughout the city, and they will meet on a regular basis and will be charged with reviewing the implementation of Activate ATL. The council will also ensure the expansion of green space as we look to double the amount of green space that we have in our system over the next 10 years, and also maintaining our existing Parks and Recreation facilities and seeing to it that we equitably invest, connect, and grow the system. Moving forward, we continue to collaborate with our business partners and ensuring the successful implementation of Activate ATL. At this time, I'd like to pass off the presentation to our Deputy Commissioner, Doug Voss.
Thank you, Commissioner, and good afternoon, members of council. I'm Doug Voss, Deputy Commissioner of Parks and Recreation. We just have a few slides to talk about some operational issues we wanted to update the council on. This slide touches on our recent process for resumption of services. As many of you know, throughout the pandemic, we had nearly 20 centers that continued to offer meals programs. They offered after-school, learning pods, and athletics throughout the city. Many times, however, those programs were limited with capacities. As of March 14th, we have initiated a resumption of services program where people can call in, and things such as our fitness rooms, our gymnasiums, our walking tracks are open. They are all available on a call-in basis, so you call the center. Each center is different. We understand there's different capacities, so we try to give flexibility with each of our facility managers to make those decisions on how many they can handle, but those programs have already been initiated as we speak. As we move into the summer, spring break season, we expect those capacities to grow. That's actually next week in the city of Atlanta. We have continued to use online reservations programs for both golf and tennis through either the Courts application or the Golf Now, and those have been going well and will continue as such. We are also planning to add indoor recreational swim. This is a question we've gotten a lot, especially at our MLK Aquatic Center, which has a zero-depth entry. It's a fantastic indoor facility, and we will be resuming those services next week, and I know a lot of people have been asking about that, so we're excited. We are not, at this time, offering rentals. That is another very popular program with our recreation centers. Those are expected soon, but right now we're not doing indoor rentals. Next slide, I hope. Another area John mentioned, Commissioner Dahlgren mentioned about our Activate ATL plan, and one of the things that we learned from that plan is that the public felt like we needed to expand our communications with the public, and sometimes that's actually internal as well as external communications. That is something that we definitely don't want to fall by the wayside. We work very hard, as John mentioned. All of our teams work throughout the pandemic to provide constant services. We feel like we have exceptional programs, we have exceptional parks. We need to make sure everybody is aware of them. So we have expanded the communications team, and this is kind of the product of some of their work. As Commissioner mentioned, our Grant Park Gateway received recognition through sustainability efforts, and that was recognized both through a press release and internally. We publish a monthly tennis newsletter that is also shown on the screen, a monthly in-house newsletter, which we call Inform, which has gone out consistently every month to our entire staff. We recently put out a press release, which we actually have not done this as much as we should, on the purchase of the Paul Avenue properties, which actually was very exciting to see such great additional media interest in that story as we put it out. We recognize greats such as C.T. Martin during Black History Month, and our 17 and unders actually won the Georgia Parks and Recreation Association state championship, and that was about 2 weeks ago. So we made sure all that is put out through social media. We do keep track, just as an as we enter the beginning of a new calendar year, of all of our metrics. All of our divisions operate on metrics that we keep constant track of on a monthly basis. For example, in Office of Parks, we have a metric for mowing, for garbage, for litter removal, for the number of trees we've taken down, the number of arborist inspections. For the Office of Recreation, we keep constant tabs on the number of students enrolled in our after-school program, in our Camp Best Friends program, as well as our meals programs and athletics. We also keep track in golf, number of rounds played, and the much revenue we've made per month. I will say we've actually had 2 of our best months in golf since we took over, partly due to good weather, but hopefully also good for good operations. And we hope people are having a good experience at all of our golf courses. Finally, before I hand it over to Director of Recreation, Ramondo Davidson, just want to make sure, I think everybody knows this, but we are hiring. We hire over 550 seasonal staff. I think we might be the largest department in the city in terms of hiring seasonal staff. Over 450 of those go towards our Camp Best Friend program, and Ramondo will speak a little bit more about this, but we are trying to get back to a 3,000 participant goal. Last year we were only able to have 1,000 students in Camp Best Friends. We are shooting for 3,000 this year. That requires 450 employees. 150 of those, a little over 150 of those, are actually teens. They're 14 to 17-year-olds that are involved in our teen program. It's run by Nicholas Clark, and that is a fantastic opportunity. If you have a teen, if you have somebody that wants to be involved, looking for a summer job, it's a 7-week program. We have placards that are actually out at every single rec center and many, many parks that you can just scan the QR code if you want to go directly to the website, on the city's website, on how to apply for these jobs. But we also have jobs in parks, mowing grass, and taking care of our facilities, as well as golf. We are looking to do a job fair. We want to thank Commissioner Norman and the talent acquisition team. We're putting on our first job fair as a department right after spring break, and look to have more information about that. But again, if you have anyone that's interested, we are hiring. At this time, I'd like to give the mic over to our Director of Recreation, Ramondo Davidson, who'd like to speak to you about some of our upcoming recreation programs. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Doug. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Ramondo Davidson, and I'm the Director for the Office of Recreation. And I'm going to be briefly speaking about this next slide. Right. Okay. So I'm going to be speaking briefly about our spring and summer programs, which would encompass the programs you see listed. We have quite a few programs that we're offering, but some of our current programs will be our Spring Break Basketball League that Doug spoke about just briefly, starting next week for the week of spring break for our teen programs, all teens ages 13 to 18, high school age 18-year-olds. Our youth baseball program, which we're currently in registration and hoping to start next month, or the month of May the 7th. One big program that I'm excited about was our youth tennis apprenticeship that we partnered with USTA. We had such overwhelming success with our adult program that we implemented the youth portion of the programming. We actually have the program currently being offered at McGee Tennis Center, and we're hoping to start that program at Bissett Grant April 22nd of this year. And finally, the Camp Best Friends, which you see there, our theme around the world, which is slated to start June 2nd through July 22nd of this year. One big program that is new, is one of our newer initiatives, is our Midnight Basketball program, which we actually will start on tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock
at C.T. Martin Recreation Center, and I hope everybody can come out and support it. It's going to be a wonderful program where we're going to have multiple wraparound services, GED, record expungement. We have several organizations that are looking to do on-the-spot hiring. So I think it's going to be a pretty big event. Outside of the basketball portion, a lot of prizes and giveaways, so really excited about that. This slide represents our summer programming, our Camp Best Friends programming. As you see, we offer Camp Best Friends at 24 locations. If you look at our previous year's numbers for 2021, we had a 25% capacity due to COVID restrictions, and that yielded about 982 youth. But we're hoping to reach our goal this year of 3,000 youth, which would put us at about 75% of our full capacity of 4,000 for this summer. And then our teen and after-school programming, which is our final program that we offer as out-of-school time programming. We currently offer after-school programming at 18 locations. We have teen programming at 9 of those locations, and we're hoping to get back to our 100% capacity number of 2,177 youth participating in our teen and after-school programming in Parks and Rec. And that's just an overview of some of the outstanding programming that we're offering. And now I'll turn it back over to Commissioner Darko.
Okay, thank you, Ramondo. And just quick highlight for you. Part of our comprehensive master plan, we developed an equity data tool also to keep us accountable and focused on equity across the city. That'll be coming out later this summer. Also, we're reapplying for the Commission of Parks and Recreation Agencies accreditation. And so we submitted a self-assessment in February. We expect some feedback in May with a virtual visit from the commission, and then we'll be recognized for accreditation by September of this year. Also, I just wanted to give you a quick highlight. We're excited and appreciate your passing and support of the upcoming infrastructure bond. The most dollars invested in Parks and Recreation in years, if not in the history of our Parks and Recreation Department, upcoming in May. So we're very excited about that project list and prioritizing those capital improvements and working with you and the community in developing a lot of great projects, and that will help us maintain our Parks and Recreation assets. Also, working hand in hand with the Atlanta Police Department on a general safety and security plan. We're continuing to work with them, taking a deep dive into our top 20 Parks and Recreation facilities that are experiencing the most criminal activity, and working closely with them on installation of some park safety and security measures like lighting, cameras, and improving the landscapes for the safety of our visitors as well. And then just one other item of interest maybe is this trend of esports. And so we're looking at implementing electronic sports in some of our facilities, representing several quadrants throughout the city. And we hope to be able to start that curriculum this summer as well as part of our after-school program. And then also just to let you know that we've taken the time over this pandemic to really invest in our fitness and weight rooms throughout the system in our recreation centers. So hopefully we've made some improvements that our visitors at the rec centers will see, both in the fitness, weight rooms, and game rooms as well over the next several months as we continue to open our doors to visitors and participants in our programs. That concludes my brief, and I am open, and we are open for any questions or comments that you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner Darko. The first speaker is Councilmember Matt Westmoreland. Take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner and team. A couple questions. The number of us have received emails about indoor swimming. Happy to hear that's coming back next week. Is that going to follow the call-ahead required reservation like everything else?
Yes.
Okay. What's our best guess on when we think we will move into a more open phase?
Well, that's the call of the pandemic team in the mayor's office, so we'll work with them closely on that process and that phasing, reopening of our facilities in accordance with the pandemic team at this time.
Okay, and then my last question, talk to me about outdoor pools. They are scheduled to open Memorial Day?
Yes, sir.
For free?
Yes.
All right. How goes the staffing up with lifeguards?
We're working closely, and if Doug Voss wants to answer any more questions about pools, we're working closely with American Pools to be sure that all 15 of our outdoor pools are open this summer, fully staffed, as well as with assigned security officers as well. And then we hope to place scanners. Is that the plan too? Is to place scanners in the pool sites as well.
Those are the things you walk through?
Yes.
Okay. At all 15? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Councilmember Winston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Dargle, for the presentation. I'm glad to see a lot of the programming is being put into place and happening right now. You did kind of touch briefly about some of the public safety initiatives that you all are taking. Can you talk a little bit about timing of, placement of lights, cameras, working with APD to make sure some of these things are happening throughout the parks?
It's ongoing, and it's based on funding available. And so we've been able to dedicate over $100,000 of security cameras throughout the system. Right now we're focused on those top 20 parks, and I can get with you offline to show you that progress and some of the things where we've invested. No timeline is set. It's ongoing, continuous. We'll also look at placing security cameras inside our facilities too, as well when the funding becomes available. Part of the infrastructure bond includes safety projects as well. So we'll look forward to significant funding in millions of dollars worth of funds to be able to continue that program along with APD.
Got it. Thank you. We'd definitely like to see that. One other thought. We've been seeing an increase in our unhoused population being in our parks throughout the city of Atlanta just due to so many unfortunate circumstances. But can you talk about any initiatives you all are taking to address this? I can tell you specifically, I met with PAD about 2 weeks ago in the Grant Park, and was kind of surprised to find out that it was one of the first times they had been kind of brought into the process to try to deal with some of our unhoused population in the park. And I just wanted to know if you all were taking any initiatives or any steps to help mitigate this problem throughout the city.
Well, like you said, it's not just one agency that can handle this. It takes a number of different agencies like the PAD, Constituent Services, working with Ms. Marksman on some of those. When our staff are faced with the homeless, they reach out to leadership as well as, and then we reach out to Ms. Marksman and her staff at PAD, and to try to provide that wraparound service and respond to those individuals' needs once we've been faced with some of the homeless in our parks. We're here to provide a safe, clean, and accessible experience for our visitors. That includes the homeless population, and so we've taken measures with other departments to accommodate their needs directly. Staff don't have that direct hands-on with the homeless, but we're relying on other agencies in the city to be able to help us either do a cleanup or help that individual to provide the need, provide services for their need.
Okay, thank you. I know myself and probably some of my colleagues would love to see specific steps and initiatives you all are taking to kind of address some of these public safety concerns. So thank you if you could get that back to us.
Yes, sir.
All right,
thank you.
All right, next is Councilmember Hillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Dargle, for the presentation. Just wanted to echo one of Councilmember Westmoreland's questions, concerns, and that's seeing or hearing the plan to fully reopen our rec centers. I know that was kind of batted over to the mayor's office, but I want to hear what the plan is, either from Parks or from the mayor's office, maybe by the end of the week. I think that's a reasonable proposal because myself and other colleagues have asked for that multiple times because it's time. And I know we just can't go and unlock the doors and let everyone in. We got to get staffing back up and et cetera, but we at least need to see a plan for that to happen. The other question, and I saw just one page on performance metrics, and some of it's not readable. So how can I get parks full set of performance metrics of how they're performing and meeting their 90th percentile goals?
One place is to look at the budget in terms of some of our statistics there, but also I can provide you what we do on a monthly basis with our staff when we review those ATL stats, as we call them, to show you some of the progress that each of our divisions work on and are accountable for. I can share that PowerPoint that we have within our operational team.
Yeah, I'd appreciate seeing those performance metrics as soon as I can get that information, and also for the Parks Department to put those in future presentations.
Okay.
That's something I feel that not just Parks, but other departments have gotten away from. And, I'm City Utilities, and the only department I've seen that has consistently always included the performance metrics is Watershed. So I'd like to see more of that, not just from Parks, but from all of our departments. And if you can give me that information, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Yes, sir, we can do that. And again, we wanted to provide you a snapshot of those tracking, especially for the newer members. I'd be happy to share with you those monthly stats that we review. And then in the future, updates with the council, providing a progress report on our strategic plan as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Commissioner.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Ellis. Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner, and your staff for your very able presentation. I just have a couple of quick questions. One to kind of follow up on the public safety issue. I know I've been on the Atlanta Police Department about trying to get the recaptured officers into the parks, and it's now almost been a year since we passed that legislation. So on your side of the equation, because I've seen their math and had to take a red pen to their math, what's going on? And I know you all have the ability, because the Parks and Recreation Department has done it in the past, of hiring officers that weren't APD to patrol the park. So where does that stand with you all?
Well, we meet on a monthly basis with APD and the administration to talk about that general safety and security plan. APD has put together a proposal, obviously a budget proposal on staffing and approach to providing direct parks safety and security. So we'll evaluate that. Our next meeting is actually tomorrow, and would be one of our agenda items if we should include that in in this next year's budget, but would rely on the administration to make those decisions moving forward. But we've got the complete support and service of APD dedicated to not necessarily to parks, but to patrolling the areas in and around the parks. And then obviously working with them on some other safety security measures, installation of cameras, that will continue ongoing as well. But be rest assured, we work hand in hand with APD on a regular basis on events, on also as operational plans, but then obviously the cost and the finances involved with dedicating park security is another question still out there.
Okay, well, just to re-emphasize, I know that Deputy Chief Coit came to the public safety meeting in August, and he said the program will be stood up in January, and today is March the 29th, and citizens are still demanding that an officer be present. I know that throughout this, APD has said that, of course, they're extending their patrols and, they're sending people into the parks, but of course, that's always helpful, but that wasn't the point. The point of legislation is to have a standing individual to be there on site that can't be pulled away, for another call or responsibility. So if you could bring that up tomorrow and reemphasize that, I would deeply appreciate it. And so would the citizens who urged us to introduce and pass the legislation.
Certainly.
Thank you. And then, next, wanted to ask about the Cook Park contract. The City of Atlanta, the City Council passed over a year ago an ordinance saying we're going to enter into a contract with the Monuments Foundation. Where does that lie? I mean, it's been over a year with that as well, and trying to get that contract work done now has gone into its, well over its third year. And, from the previous administration, and, where are we on that?
We've taken it case by case as the National Monuments Foundation has brought proposals to us on investing in the park, installing statues, and looking at their other proposals on a case-by-case basis. So I think we've initially made some steps with them on the John Lewis statue, as well as the Ambassador Young statue and event that we recently had. So we're working with the National Monuments Foundation on a case-by-case basis as they bring forward to us their proposals for the statues when we know that they have a funding plan in place as well as a maintenance plan for those statues.
Well, I'll just challenge you on that, Commissioner, and the administration. That's not the original vision or the intention of the legislation that was passed. The legislation that was passed is that the intention is for them to get the contract so they can get the financing they need in much the same and almost the exact way the Police Foundation did to get the funding and the financing for the public safety headquarters, because it's almost impossible for any nonprofit to enter into this type of an arrangement without having a contract with the city, then to go out to get the financing. And so when you say they're coming piecemeal, bit by bit, that wasn't what was contemplated. That's not what's intended in the legislation. And I think the administration, or the previous administration, and those who were part of it, certainly know that that was not the case. And so I would like to just say here publicly in this forum that I want to have a meeting with Parks and Recreation, the administration, the law department about this matter, because it's gone on way too long, and it does a disservice not only to the citizens who live and serve and expect that something would happen, it does a grave injustice to our former colleague, Ivory Lee Young, who this was his principal project, and who, as colleagues who sat with him, the former mayor, Ms. Bottoms, we all committed to get this done when he fell ill. Now he has gone on to glory for some time now, and it has just taken way too long. And the approach that you described is not the approach that's contemplated in the legislation, or is the intention of the authors or the community for the vision for that park. So I don't know, next week is a national holiday, next Wednesday, and I expect we'll all be off for National Michael Julian Bond Day as we celebrate that national holiday.
I'd be happy to set that up.
But thank you. But I do expect that a meeting will be held soon that we can resolve this issue and move on, because there are other players at the table. There are other people who have a vested interest in making sure that this would happen. Some of them have died. The Reverend C.T. Vivian's gone on to glory. John Lewis gone on to glory. And we just celebrated Ambassador Andrew Young's 90th birthday, the former mayor of the city who's invested in seeing this project happen. And it's quite an embarrassment that the Bottoms administration didn't get it done, but I have every confidence that the Dickens administration will. So with that, I'm looking forward to trying to schedule a meeting as soon as possible to get this resolved and to get this moving. Because no nonprofit that sees this type of arrangement can go out and get the financing on its own. It needs the contract to then take to the financial institutions to get the financing to make it happen. And that's how the Civic Center was done. That's how the Chastain Park was done. That's how the, what's the place down there in 12? Lakewood was done. That's how the Police Foundation was just done this fall. And that is how Cook Park will be done. We need the contract. Now, if he can't, if everything that they propose to be built can't be built on that site, that's another issue. But they need the contract to go out and get the financing to make the deal happen. The deal is not supposed to happen on behalf of a nonprofit on the personal finances of the individual who runs the nonprofit. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And so I look forward, I'm going to put my staff to contact you all to make sure that that happens.
Okay.
And then thirdly, and I don't want to manipulate the meeting, Mr. Chair, I'm going to be quick. Have we had any further conversation? I know that on the Vietnam War Memorial that we're all seeking to see happen, I think that there's been an estimate on the scale, and we need that. Do you have that number?
I do not have that number offhand, but I can get that for you, and we're continuing the conversation with them as well as the Piedmont Park Conservancy. They're in middle of their fundraising campaign as well.
Well, we have on our list of priorities, the City Council submitted to the mayor was trying to get that monument paid for in this budget cycle. So we need, I told them we needed $3 million, and I thought that was low, but we need an accurate number that is above that number.
I think you were trying to include that in the infrastructure bond for the referendum? Okay.
We had to switch lanes, and so we're trying to go to the general fund to get this paid, because again, we need to honor these individuals, and of course, most of them are north of 70 years old.
Yeah. And
this is long overdue for our veterans, that we want to see this happen as quickly as possible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then the last thing, was in a meeting with the mayor and representatives from MPJ, Council Member Amos was there. We were talking about the repairs over there to Anderson Park Pool. And I don't know you weren't expecting this question, but in the next update, can you give us an update on the time frame of when those improvements will be made? They repaired the wall out there, but there's some other work that needed to be done out there.
I can get that to you now. Unless, Doug, do you have that offhand?
This week, sir. We're doing the scope of work, both not only for the pool, but also in the rec center.
So what he said away from the mic was that the scope of work is being done?
They're working through the scope of work of this week, and then not only looking at the pool, but also improvements to the recreation center.
Okay. And at your next reporting, can you give us an update on the last 3 years of the Park Improvement Fund and what has come into the fund and where the funds have gone?
Okay.
What they've been expended upon. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I withdraw, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Vine. Commissioner Donald, just real quick question with regards to the discussion earlier about maintenance and the KPIs associated with that. I just put in my District 4 hat on a little bit. I think about some of the challenges in many of our parks across the district. In James Orange Park, we've had challenges with lighting and consistent lighting. On the backside of the park by Epworth, every time it rains, it floods. There's a depression in the street. I know that requires some coordination with watershed and transportation, but it impacts our parks as well. In Mechanicsville, we have issues with trash not being picked up consistently. Oftentimes myself or my constituents or my neighbors, I should say, bring a trash bag with us to pick up the trash in the park.
Thank you.
There's also over at Mosley Park, there's issues with the lights not being activated. So just if you can talk through, some of the assessments that your team does with regards to maintenance. Are you all going out at night to see what issues are happening? How frequently is that maintenance schedule? I know you talked about kind of the trimmings and what the arborist is doing, but some of these other pieces that make parks truly useful, I think, I would love to learn more about what's happening there. One of and I mentioned this to Deputy Commissioner Voss earlier this week, over at Howell Park, there's a gazebo that historically has been well used by the community. It's been fenced up for at least a year, and so just that red flag for me is if there's active maintenance happening with these parks, people are coming to these parks or staff are seeing that this is the case, and there should be follow-up there. And so if you can talk through that process, and I just would love to learn more so that we can maybe, if there's a staffing challenge, if there's a financial challenge, we'll have to unpack that a bit so we can address that.
Staff goes out there on a daily basis at each one of the parks that we have, either through mowing or cleanup or assessment of the facilities, inspections as well, that is happening on a daily basis. Occasionally we'll get that call that we don't know about, something in the park, so we appreciate that. You can also go through our Happy Feet app, and then or call 311, or much like you have done, call directly to me or Mr. Voss on those issues that we can address immediately, and then do a follow-up with you on those. But sometimes there's some things that we miss. Obviously, lights go out, trash isn't picked up on a regular basis, depending on the weather or mowing. And so we would try to be responsive to that on a proactive measure on a daily basis. But I think the steps that you're taking and informing me on that as well as a follow-up, I would provide that feedback and update for you.
Thank you, and I'll send you a punch list.
Okay.
And
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's very helpful. So I welcome that from everyone.
Yeah, and I guess my larger question is that, if things are working the way they're supposed to, then I shouldn't have to send a punch list. So that's really what I was kind of getting at, is if they're, how frequently is trash being picked? It sounds like it's daily, or daily is supposed to be kind of the norm. But as I identify, I'll be sure to share that with your office. Okay. I just want to bring that up because I know it's something not only I hear from constituents, but I know many of my colleagues hear from their constituents as well.
I'd be happy to, if you want to share that punch list with me, get a response back to you, or we'll take care of it.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And Councilmember Hillis, go ahead.
I won't take up too much more time, but just wanted to, while we're on park, maintenance and reopening, as you know, English Park has been closed for some time, so just please, and my other request, can you please send me an update on English Park and what the plan is there?
Okay. We'll do that. Yes, sir.
All right, I think that's it. For any final questions, thoughts, concerns? All right, thank you, Commissioner Dargle.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, we have the Department of City Planning for your quarterly update. Interim Commissioner Johnny Sitterfall. Good to see you this morning, or this afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chairman Dozier.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Janet E. Sitterfall, Interim Commissioner for the Department of City Planning. And this is my first presentation to you, my first update to you as Interim Commissioner. And I want to just take advantage of this opportunity to just alert you to some changes that have resulted as a part of me taking on the responsibilities of Interim Commissioner. We have promoted Kevin Bacon, who had previously served as our Office of Design Director, to the position of Interim Deputy Commissioner for Strategy. And Kevin is here with me today, as well as the directors of our Office of Buildings, Greg Pace, right behind me here. And we now have an interim director of the Office of Design, and that's Doug Young. He'll be serving, backfilling that position as Kevin serves as interim deputy commissioner. And we also have Josh Humphreys, who is going to continue to serve as director of the Office of Housing and Community Development. And finally, for the Office of Zoning and Development, Kieta Holmes will continue to serve as director there. And I certainly am very happy and thankful for the support that these members of staff provide me, as well as all of the members of our Department of City Planning staff. So with that, I'll jump right into just talking about permits, inspections, and code enforcement. My update today will focus for the first portion of my update on permits, inspections, and code enforcement, and then we will talk a little bit about some other major initiatives that we are involved in city planning. So with Atlanta's steady growth in recent years, we've been setting records for building permits issued. The following slides show metrics by quarter for the last 3 years and the first 2 months of 2022. 2019 holds the record with 9,261 permits issued. With the onset of COVID, we've seen a decrease of about 18%. However, none of this would have been possible if we had not quickly pieced together an electronic process when the pandemic hit. Prior to the pandemic, the process was in-person and paper-based, but the department was working to transition to electronic plan review with online service. When the COVID pandemic hit in 2020, we were prematurely pushed into getting as many of our services online as possible so that businesses and construction could continue. 22 is showing signs of rebounding with over 1,300 permits issued and over 1,300 permits submitted, and is on track to range near 2019 highs based on our projections. Construction valuation is a metric we like to use to track because it shows the value of construction to our economy. 2019 here again holds the record for this metric pre-COVID with over $5.7 billion, and that's billion with a B, in construction value. Since the pandemic, we've seen about a 12% decrease with an over 17% decrease in 2020 and about a 7% decrease in 2021. So we've still pretty much been able to hold our own through the pandemic. And for the first 2 months of 2022, we've seen over $760 million in construction value, hinting at a return to pre-pandemic levels. This slide shows a comparison of standard permits issued and express permits issued. Standard permits are residential, light commercial, and commercial permits that have an SLA, and that's a service level agreement of 10 business days. Express permits are minor permits such as fences, basement finishes, deck additions, and minor interior alterations for residential and commercial structures. Pre-COVID, express permits had an SLA of 30 minutes because they could be issued while the customer waited. With the online process, we could not meet that 30-minute SLA during the pandemic, so we changed the SLA to 3 days, which is why you see such a significant decrease in 2020 and 2021 as compared to 2019. With the reopening of City Hall for transactional services, we're processing express permits in 1 business day and seeing a rebound that we project will only get stronger as we continue to reopen to the public and gradually return to the 30-minute SLA. This slide shows the number of permits issued by work stream. Each work stream is specific to the type of use and or size. The work streams are residential. These are permit applications for single-family and duplex homes for new construction, major additions and renovations. Light commercial, which are permit applications for commercial projects that are under 10,000 square feet, and multifamily alterations and additions. And then finally, commercial, which are permit applications for large commercial projects that exceed 10,000 square feet. As you can see, the residential work stream receives the highest number of permit applications, followed by light commercial. And this chart illustrates the highs and lows for each of the work streams during the pandemic. But here again, you can see that based off the first 2 months of 2022, we're trending back towards the 2019 highs. In terms of the number of inspections, pre-COVID, inspections were all conducted in person only, and here again, 2019 was a record year with 125,000 inspections. During COVID, we introduced video inspections and third-party inspections in order to meet the demand of the construction industry. And if we had not introduced these new ways to conduct inspections, the construction industry would have been hit very hard. So for the first 2 months of 2022, we show a moderate return to pre-COVID levels. I just want to mention here that we've had a trend of being a little understaffed in this area, and we've added inspectors through a supplemental staffing contract with Nova just before the pandemic hit, which was really fortunate. And we're still having challenges in that area, so we've continued to use the Nova contract, and we're working with HR to find ways to recruit in this area by doing some salary studies, looking at other ways to attract and retain inspectors, like, for example, allowing them to take their cars home, and partnering with some of the trade schools in the Atlanta area to increase our recruitment. In terms of inspections, by type, as I said previously, pre-COVID, inspections were all done in person, and were done in person only. So this slide shows the distribution of inspections by type in 2020 and 2021, and the first 2 months of 2022. During the pandemic, we leaned very heavily on third-party inspections and video inspections, and with the slow return to a new normal, there's been an uptick in on-site inspections. This slide shows the trend for construction valuation from fiscal year 11 to fiscal year 2022, and you can see we've had steady increases in construction value over the last decade. In fiscal year 21, we begin to see a rebound that is projected to continue through the end of this fiscal year. Just to touch on code enforcement a little bit, we've been making some improvements to our code enforcement operations in terms of staffing and expanding responsibilities and the introduction of evening and weekend coverage as of February 19th. We implemented something called Code Busters back in July of 2021, and at the time we had 6 enforcement inspectors. We now have 16 inspectors and are working to hire a few more for a total of 20 inspectors with 5 in each quadrant. Since we launched the Code Busters program, we've received over 1,300 complaints, and complaints can be directed to the number and email here, and the email is codebustersdcp@atlantagA.gov. As shown here on this pie chart, most of the complaints we've received have been in the southwest quadrant of the city. And as shown here, in terms of a breakdown of our complaints, stop work orders make up the majority of our complaints. Other complaints include those related to zoning, working without a permit, and issuing correction notices and citations. To touch briefly on some of the permitting improvements that we have been implementing, this slide gives you a brief update on our efforts this next slide gives you an update on our efforts to continue to improve our permitting process. As I said, in 2020 with the onset of COVID, we had to move the majority of our paper transactions to electronic in a very, very short time frame. So we realize that our current permitting process is not perfect, but as we resume our normal operations, we've picked up where we left off in terms of advancing electronic plan review. And as we make technological improvements, we're also looking at ways to improve our permitting process by reducing or limiting the number of people touching the process or a permit, and reducing the timelines for review and approval of permits. The blue box at the top right shows the number of people currently involved in the activities listed, and the green box at the bottom shows the current timelines for these activities. So let me just point out here that one of the biggest challenges we have in looking at how to improve our permitting process is the fact that there is no one owner of the permitting process in the city of Atlanta. It's really, several departments review and touch that process from their specific standpoint in order to do the reviews and approvals. So achieving these first two goals of reducing the number of touch points and reducing timelines is really going to take coordination between Watershed, Parks and Rec, ATL DOT, and Public Works. And we've begun to have conversations with these departments about some of the proposed improvements and are working to convene a cross-departmental group to improve coordination. We're also implementing initiatives to increase customer support and follow-up with one window service. We're piloting what we're calling a development services team that can be expanded as needed to meet demand. This team is a small but very focused team that's reaching out to customers that have applications in the system that are over 10 business days to move them through the process. We're also trying to simplify our submission requirements and process steps to make them clear and transparent for our customers. We've been working with a small group of customers that are providing us feedback on our proposals as we move forward. This next slide shows our strategic roadmap of short-term and midterm and long-term process improvements. I won't go into all the details here, but the proposals range from quick short-term fixes, such as reviewing and updating our checklists, to making simple improvements to our website to allow for easier access to information, to some of the midterm improvements like parallel reviews and launching new programs to allow for external plan reviewers or stamping of plans by outside professionals. All of these proposals are gradually being implemented with the long-term goal of restructuring our process for the full implementation of the electronic plan review process. With affordable housing being such a critical goal for the city, I just want to highlight a proposed improvement to establish an affordable housing priority work stream. And we plan to do this through our Office of Housing and Community Development, which currently tracks all of our affordable housing projects going on in the city through a pipeline tracker. And OHCD is going to work with our Office of Buildings to convene a cross-departmental group to streamline approvals and troubleshoot barriers for individual projects. Wanted to give you also an update on the short-term rental program. As we all know, we passed legislation to regulate short-term rentals in March of last year. And as of March 1st, all owners, operators of short-term rentals must have a license. So existing owners and operators currently have until April 1st to get one. We began receiving applications for short-term rentals back in February. And we've had ongoing social media campaigns during this time, but the process has been very slow. And I'm missing one of my slides. Yeah, I'm missing one of my slides. But in any case, we've had an ongoing social media campaign, as I was saying, but the process has been very slow. And as of last Friday, We've received about 253 applications. I'm sure that it's more by today. And we've issued about 56 licenses, and we've required revisions to about 61 and denied 8. And these are some of the reasons behind the denial. Applicants have tried to register entire multifamily buildings. Applicants who do not reside in the city of Atlanta or have a primary residence in the city of Atlanta have been trying to submit applications. And these are just some of the common reasons for the application revisions, which is mostly because of missing documents, some of which are listed there. And so we've tried to take a more proactive approach by reaching out to applicants to clarify the process requirements and help them identify the documents that are necessary. And we have also made some updates to some of the documentation that's available on our website to enable folks to be able to respond to the requirements of the legislation. So this next portion of my presentation is going to provide you with a brief update on our major projects and initiatives that are currently underway. The first is the Comprehensive Development Plan, or the CDP, which is Atlanta's Guide for Growth and Development. The CDP shows the important relationships between land use, transportation, housing, economic development, nature, historic preservation, and other aspects of city building. The Georgia Department of Community Affairs, or DCA, and Atlanta Regional Commission require Atlanta to adopt and implement a CDP and update it within 5 years. Atlanta's current CDP was adopted in October 2021, and our next update is required by October 2026. The city uses the CDP to prioritize infrastructure investments and changes to development policies for individual neighborhoods and the entire city. And per Atlanta's charter, the Atlanta City Design, adopted in 2017, sets the framework for updating our CDP. We've not wasted any time in getting our next update underway. Our next update of the CDP will occur in phases over multiple years. Since Plan A is the first CDP since adopting Atlanta City Design into the city charter, it starts to align several plans and initiatives using Atlanta City Design as a framework. But it also includes most of the goals, policies, and actions outlined in the 2016 CDP. And during the next phases of our update, we'll examine more technical aspects and facilitate more public conversations about density, land use, zoning, housing affordability, and other topics raised during last year's CDP process. To assist with these next phases of our update, we propose to leverage the experience of a consultant team that is currently helping on the zoning ordinance reform to ensure that the updates to Plan A inform and align with the direction of our new zoning ordinance rewrite. We'll be bringing you legislation in the next few weeks, probably in late April, to finalize the consultant contract and begin phase 1 of this update in June of this year. The proposed approach to this begins with a detailed land use analysis and will allow for very robust public engagement throughout the plan development process. In terms of the zoning rewrite, we started what we call ATL Zoning 2.0, which is a comprehensive multi-year process to rewrite an existing 40-year-old zoning ordinance that no longer meets the city's present and future needs. These deficiencies include many outdated standards that don't reflect city policies or best practices, and an overall format that's pretty complicated and not very user-friendly. The rewrite is an opportunity to comprehensively address these issues and create a new set of regulations that better serve the city and the ambitions of our residents. So that work is ongoing, and we will be doing a lot of outreach as part of that as well. One of the biggest challenges today is that the many zoning districts contain standards that bear outdated and inconsistent relationships to Atlanta's existing development patterns, especially in its older urban neighborhoods. And so this just outlines kind of the city scale analysis that will be used to do the land use analysis and looking at the various aspects of land patterns that, one, do not line up with Atlanta city design, and two, cause what we're calling non-conforming or non-conformities in terms of the application of our current zoning codes. So the rewrite process is going to include a detailed review of existing development patterns in representative neighborhoods across Atlanta that will be used to inform potential changes to the zoning ordinance. This just shows some of the next steps for our zoning rewrite. In the coming months, we'll be finalizing the regulatory approach for the rewrite, which will include zoning ordinance alternatives for public consideration. And several outreach activities are planned during the summer to allow residents to provide and input and share their ideas. Our next major initiative is what we call Love Our Places. And Love Our Places was formerly what we had as a placemaking program, started back in 2017. And it's really intended to reimagine Atlanta's public realm for people, with projects ranging from artistic crosswalks to bus stops to parking spaces redesigned for on-street dining. And the initiative aims to redesign Atlanta's streets through tactical urbanism. These low-cost, high-impact interventions are tools for residents and community organizations to lead the changes they want to see in their own neighborhoods. Last year, the program provided parklet structures for 16 businesses to support public health guidelines for local food and beverage establishments, while also trying to create vibrant streets. And this year, the focus is on creating bike corrals by converting one on-street parking space, sidewalk space, or open space into a bike parking structure. They will be placed in areas with multiple destinations, such as local commercial districts, to encourage the use of biking as a transportation option by increasing the number of convenient locations to fix and park bikes in Atlanta. This slide shows the location of communities that have applied for and received conditional awards for bike corrals, and these are contingent on final approval for ATL DLT, and you can see we've tried to spread them out across the city as much as possible. In partnership with ATL DLT, we recently updated the Tactical Urbanism Guide, which supports the Love Our Places program, and the Vision Zero efforts by empowering communities to implement low-cost, impactful road safety improvement projects in their neighborhoods, and that was recently released earlier this year. This is just an excerpt from the 2022 edition, which features 6 new project options: tactical slip lane closures, demonstration bike lanes, tactical bus stop enhancements, pedestrian space art, and lane narrowing. On the housing and economic development side, we're developing new programs that will expand some of our, we're developing new programs and expanding some of our existing programs. We have plans to establish a resident education and advocacy team to increase resident awareness of existing resources and provide a front door for those looking for housing support. And our neighborhood and economic development team is continuing citywide economic development initiatives by expanding support to small businesses, business districts, and food trucks. Last year, we received a federal grant and launched the Atlanta Grown program to continue connecting local urban farmers with opportunities to expand their businesses. This year, we plan to increase access to neighborhood groceries by providing subsidies to new small-scale grocery stores in low-income areas with limited food access. Last year, we also established and began staffing our Housing and Innovation Lab, which is exploring new housing options and initiating new affordable housing and mixed-use projects on city-owned property. And we're really excited about launching this. The 104 Trinity Avenue property right across from City Hall here is the first of what we hope will be many city-owned properties that are currently underutilized and can be transformed into affordable and market-rate housing with a mix of uses and enhanced public services and amenities. So we've been working with Invest Atlanta rather, and we've selected a developer that is set to start work on this site later this year. This next slide shows the distribution of these high-potential city-owned properties throughout the city. And the next steps for this program to move forward include releasing a request for interest to get the private sector to help us figure out the best way to use our public assets, and later this year begin announcing requests for proposals for city-owned properties that are quick and manageable. And then finally, we've talked a lot about the Chattahoochee brick site, which is part of our efforts in the Chattahoochee Riverlands Initiative, which has been ongoing. It's been an ongoing effort between the city and the Atlanta region, Cobb County, and the Trust for Public Land since about 2018. And most recently, of course, we've been working with the mayor's office and other departments and the Conservation Fund to acquire the Chattahoochee brick property, and that legislation we just passed earlier during this session. And we thank you all for your support and approval of that acquisition, because it's really an amazing opportunity to create a significant place that connects people to history and nature along our waterfront. These are just some articles. And then finally, we are about to, well, we submitted a grant application to begin the Atlanta Reach scoping study that will start the design process for the initial 3 to 4 miles of the Riverlands Greenway system and connecting with existing and planned local trails, such as the Whetstone Creek Trail in the north to the, and the Proctor Creek Greenway in the south. So with that, that concludes my presentation, and I thank you for your attention, and I'll take any questions that you may have at this point.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Siddall. Before I turn the floor over to my colleagues for questions, I do want to ask a question that is on the top of a lot of people's minds, and it's not uncontroversial, but the Peachtree shared space has, I've gotten a lot of emails, calls, complaints, letters of concern from the advocacy groups that have been involved in this process, and I'm not going to badger you about who knew what when and that sort of thing, but I do share concerns about the fact that we do have a number of demonstrations that are happening across the city, and what's the future of those demonstrations considering what we saw on Peachtree. Could you talk to, what other demonstrations are actively occurring? B, are they at risk of losing those? And C, is the city exploring future demonstrations so that we can make sure we let everyone know that our streets can be safer, and here's how we can make that happen. It's something that I campaign on, some of us on this panel campaign on, and we'd love to see that happen more. But if you could talk through that, we'd love to hear from you in your office.
Sure. We were very, very happy to implement and have the opportunity to do the demonstration project on Peachtree Street. And I think we got a lot of really good information. We got a lot of good data, and we allowed people for the time that it was there to experience that shared street the benefits of a shared street, the benefits of being able to ride bikes, have outdoor dining, and all those aspects. And I don't think any of the city's commitment to safety and improving our public realm have diminished as a result of the de-installation process. We've identified other initiatives that top of mind is Broad Street. We're working very closely with ADID or CAP to do some improvements on Broad Street as part of the reconstruction of the plaza deck that existed there. And there are plans working with Newport and other stakeholders that are doing development along Broad Street to make some very similar types of improvements. There's work going on in Edgewood, and there are other projects that we're working on with ATL DOT to continue the implementation of complete streets and shared streets. So we will continue to move those types of initiatives forward because it's very important to the city of Atlanta, and it's very important to the people who use our streets. And so I don't foresee any discontinuation of that commitment.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandoval. Our next speaker, Councilmember Hillis.
Thank you, Chairman Dozier. Thank you for the presentation. And I'm Commissioner Sandoval. I have a handful of questions. So just as I asked with parks, I would like to see some true performance metrics included in future presentations, but also would like them emailed to me and the committee members for the last quarter to see what those are.
And we'd be happy to provide you, like parks, we do monthly updates to finance of our performance metrics, and of course we include those in the budget book as well, so you'll have those two sources.
And next question is, you mentioned one slide discussed construction valuation. How does parks, I guess, compute that? Because is it just something someone puts on their application? Because when I look on your permits online versus what houses are selling for, I mean, there's discrepancies of up to, $500,000, and I'm sure there's more. So how is that number used and calculated?
I will tell you that it is in our code. There's a formula in our code that helps us calculate that, but if Greg is available, I'm sure he can provide you with a little bit more detail on exactly how that happens.
Sure. Good afternoon, council members. The construction valuation is a ICC International Code Council, Table 100. That is a part of our administrative code in the city's ordinance that we calculated based on the type of construction, the type of materials used, the size, and the use that they're proposing. All of that is calculated. Usually we require the applicant, design professionals to provide us with that number. If that number we actually put that information inside of our database, and it's calculated through those formulas, and that's how we come up with the construction valuation. That determines the cost of the permit.
So, but generally that number should reflect the cost that it would cost the builder to build that structure, or what is that supposed to reflect?
That's correct. That's the cost of what the builder is going to. That's the cost of the builder constructing that project based on materials, labor, etc.
Okay. I'd like to hear more about that, in the future, because I'm like I said to Ms. Sitterfall, I'm seeing houses that are selling for. I looked up, one in my district that sold recently, a new build, selling for $700K, but when you look at the city's construction valuation, it's $250K. So I don't think a builder's making that much money on a new build. So that's something I'd like to sit down and talk about, sure. Because we use those to capture fees and things like that. So thank you for that. Speaking of fees, Interim Commissioner Sitterfall, where are we on the phasing of the impact fee increase that we passed?
We have done phase 1, which was done back in September of last year. And if you remember, we're doing increments over 3 years. So in September, we will see the phase 2 of that increase be implemented.
Okay. And on going back to the construction metrics, and I would like to see, I don't know if this is one, but would really like to see, I saw the number of stop work orders and appreciate Director Pace and his team. I know, as you mentioned, there's been some challenges in the past, and I hope we're getting past those. But in those processes, I would like to see more follow-up. I appreciate the initial emails and knowing about the schedule, and maybe even what was found. A stop work order was posted, or a notice to comply was posted. But going past that, I would like to see, this has been resolved, or this has been given a citation. So I'd like to see some type of metric as to how many of those stop work orders that we have issued have turned into citations and court cases. If you could get that, please.
Sure.
And another, staying on performance metrics where specific to permit issuances for building permits, do you all reset that clock when you give revisions back to the applicant?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's something I somewhat have a problem with, just hearing from builders across the city, as well as myself. I built a home 3-4 years ago now, because reviewers, and it's not just planning, it's watershed reviewers and others, but you hand here, you need to do this to the applicant. They submit their revisions, and then y'all find 5, 10, 12 more things that they need to do, which should have been in the initial review. So that extends and extends and extends their application process. So I think that's an area for improvement that I hope you would agree with.
I think we would definitely agree with you, and that's one of the, as I said, looking at streamlining the number of touch points as well as reducing those timelines wherever we can. So that's an ongoing exercise that we've been working on for about, 3 or 4 months now? So we're looking to, and some of this will entail changes to Acela. Some of this will entail working better with other departments and finding ways to ensure that those, if there are reviews happening, to address your concern about, how reviews are done and then comments are provided. If you do something like parallel reviews, where all of the reviewers are reviewing at the same time and coordinating together, that definitely helps to reduce the timeline and the back and forth. So those are all things we're looking at as part of our improvement process.
Just a few more questions. So on one of your slides, you talked about the transitioning city-owned properties to affordable housing. I know we were provided a presentation by your predecessor, and some of us were kind of taken aback being told that we have, I believe it was over 1,300 properties, and they had so diligently identified 8 of them. So have we added to that number since then?
We are constantly adding to that number. We are working very closely, not just with, in terms of city properties, but also working with our counterparts at Vest Atlanta, ABI, all of whom own properties, AHA, and other agencies, to really take a comprehensive look at all of the city assets that are out there,
and so
how we can.
Do you have an estimation of what that number has went up to from that?
I don't have it in front of me right now, but what we have done is try to put them into larger areas that make sense, to really get a feel for what is actually out there and what we can do to leverage these properties as best we can, regardless of whether it's city-owned, AHA-owned, or ABI-owned, for example. So we'd be happy to, update you with more recent numbers.
And one more question, and this, I'm saving my sermon on short-term rentals for when we get to that legislation, but wanted to hit one question and just recapping. So this body passed that legislation in March of 2021, and you all, or you in your presentation stated that you started receiving applications in February. Did you all not open an application process until that time?
That is correct.
So what did y'all do for 10 months?
We staffed, we set up a process, because we had to make changes to our system through Acela. So that is what we did for the majority of those 10 months, staffing up and making whatever adjustments we had to. And Greg, if you have something else to add.
What was the exact date that was put up? February?
February 1st.
Okay.
Councilmember, just to add, there was a delay in the process because the city council, we went back to rezone the zoning ordinance. So that the initial short-term rental licensing was supposed to start September 1st, 2021. It was delayed for, I think, until December, so that the zoning ordinance could marry with the actual short-term rental license, so that there was no conflict. So that was part of the 10-month period.
Okay. So what was the, I guess, evaluation done that planning could open an online portal to apply for these permits as to the number of permits you would project to receive, and also process those successfully or reject them within that 2-month time frame of when this is supposed to be required?
I'm not sure.
I'm trying to, I don't follow your questions. I'm sorry.
So the plan, or what became the plan, you all opened up this portal on February 1st for these applicants that had to meet a April 1st deadline. At what point did planning do an evaluation that said, okay, we expect to receive, 1,000 or 5,000 applications, and also projected that you all would be successful in processing all those within 2 months? Because that is what is or is not occurring right now.
Correct. During the part of it, since the initial start effective date of the license being issued was March 1st, we did that 30-day opening prior to that to see how many applications we would receive, how long we would process, etc., in order to process those, and to, as we go through the process, kind of whatever changes and adjustments need to be made to those applications that need to be edited for documentation purposes, understanding, and those types of things. That's what we covered during that 30-day window. And once it actually opened up where we issued licenses, prior to that we were contacting customers, sending customers their applications back if we had any issues. There wasn't a large amount of number of applications submitted during that time, during that process.
And I think that's really been the challenge. For one, there's a bit of, we can all guess or estimate how many short-term rental operators there are in the city, but we didn't have any concrete information. So that's one part of it. And then just based on our guesstimates and some initial conversations with VRB, Airbnb, and those types of operators, we figured, okay, we can staff up to this level, and I think we hired, six folks to help with the processing of the applications. But it hasn't been a problem processing the application. It's been a problem receiving the applications that we can process. And that's where, we've been focusing efforts on social media prior to even opening the portal to, alert people as to what the process was, providing information through our website, providing information through other stakeholders. But there can always be more that we can do, which is why we would support the legislation that you're going to be considering to extend to delay the enforcement of the actual violation of not having a license by June 1st.
What is the current typical processing time for one of those applications?
It has the same 10-day SLA.
Okay. And given, it appears you have received 253, issued 56, and asked for revisions on 61. With that given, could you process all of the pending applications by April 1st?
Probably, yes.
Okay. All right. Like I said, I'm going to save more questions about that for when we get to that legislation, but I'll defer to my colleagues. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Hillis. Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Acting Commissioner, for your very thorough and detailed presentation. However, my questions have nothing to do with it. The first question I have is I've been peppered with emails and concerns about the NPUs returning in person. And I will tell you, this is a selfish question. Why would you go back to being in person? I've never been able to go to NPUs A, B, and C, and E in the same night until the pandemic. And that was virtually on a laptop, computer, and both of my phones, and I was very happy about it. It has been a running joke in my office for the last 12 years with me and my staff trying to make those meetings in person because they all happen at the same time. And so, we risk the ire of the Atlanta Police Department trying to race from one meeting to another. And so why was it recommended or is being recommended to go back in person when it seems like NPU participation virtually really is at an all-time high, and that citizens seem to enjoy it, and it's very accommodating for someone like myself?
I agree with you on all of those points. And that's why we're allowing the NPUs to determine whether or not they want to go back in person, whether they want to do a hybrid, or whether they want to continue virtually. We're still prepared to support them whichever way they choose to continue to operate because, as I said, we agree with you. I mean, the participation numbers have been extremely good during the pandemic, and we don't want to stop that. So for the NPUs, they're not required to come back in person. That will be up to their leadership to determine how they move forward with meeting participation, and we're prepared to continue to help them hold virtual meetings if they want to do hybrid so that some people can attend in person and others can attend remotely. They'll have that option as well, so it'll be up to them.
Do you have to give them the option? Can't you just tell them to keep it going the way that it is?
Not the way our NPUs operate. They're pretty independent.
All right, I won't push it. But I appreciate it because the perception...
We can strongly suggest.
Okay. Well, I don't know, but the perception of some of the people that reached out to my office, and I don't know if anybody else got the same reaction, was that they were being made to go back.
No.
And so they're not being made to go back. It is their choice of their NPU.
Exactly.
Okay, well, that's good to get that clarification. And then my second and final question is, I know we issue certificates of occupancy when properties are ready or finished with their remodeling or construction. What does it take to lose a certificate of occupancy? Because around the city, it seems like the worst places for human habitation are able to lease and continue to lease the spaces that have a certificate of occupancy from the city or got one at some time in the past. So what does it take to lose one?
Well, I'll let Greg give you whatever specifics he can at this point in time.
Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow, Councilmember. There's a lot of legal procedures involving that. Once our office issues a certificate of occupancy, we don't conduct inspections of the property, especially for residential property. Commercial property, I believe, are inspected by fire inspection, life safety inspections yearly. And based on any submission of complaints and things of that nature, our building inspector can go to a property, even with APD code enforcement. If they deem that property to be unsafe and unfit, then we can essentially go through a process with them, partnering with them to either get that landlord, the owner, to bring that property into compliance, and if not, then through several citations, court orders, we can revoke a certificate of occupancy. Usually we work with our law department to revoke the certificate of occupancies whenever we encounter those types of issues.
Let me ask you another question. And so is it that we don't have the authority to revoke a certificate of occupancy administratively? Are we prohibited from doing that by the state, or is that just not the way the code is written?
I don't think the code is written that way. Everybody's entitled to due process, and so through that is how we have to administer the revocation of a certificate of occupancy. I would have to defer to the attorneys, to our law department for that.
Is there someone from the law department that might venture an answer or response?
Possibly Jonathan Futrell.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Bond. Jonathan Futrell, attorney with the law department. Could I ask you to please repeat your question?
The city has the ability to follow a procedure to have a certificate of occupancy rescinded through the courts. Are we preempted? Well, I guess a couple of defining questions. Are we preempted by state law from revoking a certificate of occupancy for a property, residential or commercial?
No, I'm not aware of any state law that would prohibit us if there was an order from the municipal court that found like it needed to be done so.
Are we prohibited by state law from creating an administrative process to revoke certificates of occupancy?
No, I don't think that we would be prohibited. The only requirement there is that ultimately the International Building Code is a code that's been adopted by the state, which we have to adopt as well. However, we are allowed to adopt our own, quote, administrative code, our own Chapter 1 to the building code, if you will, and we can include processes like that. We would just need to run them by the Department of Community Affairs to be sure that they don't want to have a comment before we passed such a change.
Is it possible to prohibit, or is it against the law for a property, whether commercial or residential, to lease without a certificate of occupancy?
Quite simply, you're not supposed to be occupying any building in the city without a certificate of occupancy. That is a violation of the code, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to talk to you offline.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for that. Mr. Chair, I withdraw.
Thank you, Councilmember Bond. Do any of my other colleagues have any questions? I do have a couple of questions. I promise I'll be quick. The first question that I had was with regards to, or I guess a clarifying question, a discussion about MPUs not having to report in person, but my understanding is that ACAB and other boards and commissions will have to report in person. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Sure, that's correct. APAB and our other boards are governed by the Georgia Open Meetings Act, and that's a state law that requires that unless there is an emergency condition, which we had during COVID, these boards and commissions have to meet in person. And so that is basically what is requiring that APAB return to in-person meetings.
Thank you so much. And then it's more of a comment, but in the presentation, you had shared the number of permits issued. I'm curious what the number of permits submitted are. I think in your discussion of 2022, that number was included, but just I'm curious about the conversion, if you will, and if permits are being denied, why are they being denied? I'm just kind of curious to get some insight on that.
We can provide you with the number of permits issued for each of those years, but as to the specifics, Greg, would you be able to provide some specifics on why permits are being denied?
Yeah, majority of our permits, we can give you a tabulation of the permits that are what we consider on hold. Any permits that are denied usually are because of a zoning and they can't rezone the property. But any permit that is in process through building codes, you can always meet a building. You can meet a building code. So they may be on hold, requiring revisions from their architect or their design professional to be able to work through whatever those revisions are. That may take them some time trying to figure out the best way to maneuver that impediment. But we can provide you with numbers for the number of applications submitted versus the number of permits that's been issued.
That'd be great. Thank you. And then just my last question, going back to the short-term rental conversation. Do you know if the Airbnbs and the VRBOs of the world are contacting their customers about this legislation and whether are these changes? Okay, so they are?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
And we've actually, when was it, last Tuesday?
Yeah,
we had a joint webinar with them, and these are the kinds of things that we'd like to do more of if there's the opportunity to delay the enforcement component.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions for my colleagues? Seeing none, thank you both so much for your presentation, and thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Well, thank you very much, and look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you, absolutely. All right, so the next item on our agenda is ordinances for second reading. I believe we're at number 4, Ms. Linda, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair. That's 220-1239. This is an ordinance by council members Michael Jillian Bond, Byron Amos, Antonio Lewis, Dustin Hillis, Howard Shook, Lillian Bakatari, Jason Winston, Amir Faroki, Jason Dozier, Marcy Colley Overstreet, Matt Westmoreland, and Keisha Sean Waits, authorizing the City of Atlanta to partner with HelloFresh and the post one at-large council member to donate blank to their citywide initiatives pursuant to Section 6-306 of the City of Atlanta Charter, authorizing the mayor, a designee, and/or the chief financial officer to effectuate this donation, authorizing the chief financial officer to charge to and pay the donation authorized hereby from the account listed herein and for other purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. Councilmember Bond, I know you had pushed forward this legislation. Anything you want to speak to with regards to this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move this on to finance with no recommendation. It's spoken with Ms. Santana about making sure we had a substitute ready for the finance meeting tomorrow.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I have a question first. I'm a little uncomfortable moving it. How much do we know what the dollar amount is going to be that goes in that blank?
Close to $10,000. This paper is actually supposed to be not a donation paper, but a refunding paper for the expenses associated with HelloFresh. And so Ms. Kempson Wright assures me that the substitute will be ready by tomorrow's finance meeting.
Any other questions? We're still needing a second.
Legally and technically, seconds aren't required, though I'm disappointed that I can't get one from the members that are present, since HelloFresh has been conducted in all of their districts to the benefit of their citizens.
And
motion for the system, we already asked for a second. Mr. Chair, we do operate based on Robert's Rules of Order, which is adopted by the City Council, and Robert's Rules of Order does require that you have a second to move the motion forward.
Point of order, I disagree. This matter was discussed last week in our finance meeting. The City Council rules override Robert's Rules of Order, and the City Council rules do not require a second in committee, but the computer programming does. And I believe the law department clarified that for us at the last finance meeting. But again, I'm disappointed that colleagues that I've worked and been in service to wouldn't pay me the courtesy of giving me a second for the perfunctory reason.
Yep, in that vein, I will second your motion, though I'm not prepared to support the paper without it being ready. So, second.
Well, thank you. I'll take half of that sandwich. Thank you.
Any discussion? I will say that I had some of the same concerns as Councilman Westmoreland just with regards to the lack of a specific dollar amount. I recognize this is going to go back to the Finance Committee, but that was my reservation about that coming out of this committee.
Well, you know, it's $10,000 out of my council budget for a citywide initiative that this city council has approved as a citywide initiative, and I would like to be reimbursed. You know, this matter wouldn't be before you if we were given the right to use Everbridge again. The Everbridge service that every other city department gets to use to send emails, text messages, and robocalls. But for some reason, during the last administration, at the behest of the former council president, that right was removed from the city council. I don't want to be here pandering for a refund for doing good civic work. But when the city of Atlanta is already paying for a service that gives robocalls, text messages, emails to our citizens that every department of city government has used for non-emergency purposes, I want to state that, for non-emergency reasons, you know, I need to be reimbursed. Mine is a little office, a little council office with a teeny-weensy budget. But to inform people to come out and to get the help they need, I've incurred the cost. And I feel like I'm right because to be reimbursed because I have serviced every area of Atlanta. And I have the invoices, and they total almost up to $10,000. But the paper's not ready today. Ms. Kimson Wright says it will be ready tomorrow. And so I would like you all's support since I have serviced every corner of Atlanta, including every representative's district that is here present today. And Mr. Westmoreland was the only one who stood with me. Give me a second. I'll never forget you, Mr. Westmoreland.
Mr. Chair, I would, so while I'm very supportive of, you know, the work you've been doing with the HelloFresh and how it's been around the city of Atlanta, I guess, you know, my concern is that we owe the citizens a fiduciary responsibility to scrutinize and look at every dollar amount that's being spent. So being a freshman council member here, you know, I'm just looking for a dollar amount to be able to support this, and having that being absent right now, it
I
just
don't
seems that
mind
this is
amending the
we can't
paper
push
to
forward.
put $10,000 in there if that will help. You know, I'll do an amendment. But the whole paper is going to be substituted tomorrow anyway. It's a dual referral, so it goes to both committees. So the scrutiny that you hope that will happen will still definitely happen. It'll just happen tomorrow as opposed to today. And it won't be before the council unless the committees release it. So, you know, I'll make that amendment. If I can get a second.
Not this time.
Not this time?
I gave him a second.
Oh, man.
We still have the initial motion on the table, but we had a motion and a second. Just wanted to check to see.
I mean, if the issue is the dollar amount, then making the amendments to satisfy the issue. I have the invoices in my office. I can have my staff print them if you'd like. I mean, is that what you all would like to get this to move? I guess the word of the dean of the council isn't enough. Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, if my staff is watching, pull the emails with those invoices to Ms. Mary Tanner and bring them in the chamber. Mr. Chair, I'd ask for the indulgence of the committee to hold this item off till later in the agenda.
There's a motion to hold. Is there a second?
Well, you don't have to have a formal motion. You can just not deal with it, just move on.
Yeah, we can just come back to it if we're going to, we don't have any motion, we can just come back to it on the agenda.
Wow.
And my ask would be for any specific dollar amount, if there's an amendment made, to be included in that versus the broader 10,000. I know that's a round number, but I know this is going to get discussed at finance as well, but just want to make sure, cross the T's.
No, we'll bring the invoices in here. But I guess being the dean isn't all it's cracked up to be, is it?
All right. Ms. Leno, please move on to the next item.
Next item, Mr. Chair, is item number 5, that's 22-1241. This is an ordinance by council members Mayor Farocki and Alex Wong to temporarily suspend section 20-1008C and 20-100D of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances only as they may be applied to short-term licensees or short-term rental operators that have not obtained license, such that there shall be no authority to take administrative action or to impose any administrative penalties against a short-term licensee or short-term rental operators that have not obtained a license, to declare that the suspension of the section 20-100C and 20-1008D of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances provided herein shall only be in effect through June 1st, 2022, and thereafter the suspension of sections 20-100C and 20-100D of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances shall automatically end, and beginning June 2nd, 2022, shall have no legal force or effect and for other purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. The recommendation is for this motion to be approved. Can I get I'll entertain that motion. Move approval by Westmoreland. Can I get a second? Second, Winston. Any discussion? Hearing none. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
Motion is favorable, 5 yeas, 1 nay, 0 abstentions. Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. Chair, item number 6 is 22-1245. This is an ordinance by Councilmember Jason Winston to waive the requirements of Chapter 2, Article 9, Division 1, Section 2-910 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, to authorize the mayor or his designee, including the commissioner of the Department of City Planning, to apply for a Georgia Smart Communities Challenge grant from the Partnership for Inclusive Innovation in an amount not to exceed $100,000 in order to pilot an emergency efficiency home improvement program for low-income homeowners and for other purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Linda. I believe Josh Humphreys, the housing director, is here with us today. He's on his way. Okay. There he is. Hey, Mr. Humphreys, if you could please speak to this legislation.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Josh Humphreys. First off, I want to thank Councilmember Winston for working with us on this. We are, as many of you probably know, working really closely around the Thomasville Heights neighborhood and how to support that neighborhood with everything that's going on around Forest Cove, and work together with the residents to really leverage the publicly owned land, Atlanta Housing land, City of Atlanta land, and others, and to think creatively about how to have a sustainable, affordable, and vibrant future for the Thomasville Heights community. And so one of the elements of that is looking at programs that help stabilize the neighborhood and support the residents that live there. And there's a grant opportunity that we like to apply for that would help us, and we're crafting a program to reduce energy burden for the single-family homeowners that live in the Thomasville Heights community. And we think that it's an important tool to really reduce from a climate resiliency standpoint, an important tool, but also important in reducing the total cost to live in a single-family home. Energy loss and energy costs can often be kind of an unseen element that raises the cost of housing. And so this grant will help homeowners in the Thomasville Heights community if we win it. It's part of our larger strategy for the neighborhood.
Thank you so much. I'll entertain a motion to approve. All right, just want to get your name on there. Motion by Hillis, second by Winston. Any discussion? Hearing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
Thank you, Ron. The motion is favorable, 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Next item.
Next item is 22-1247. This is an ordinance by Councilmember Marcy Colley Overstreet to honor the life and legacy of Henry Louis Aaron for his accomplishments on and off the baseball field by renaming Adams Park Baseball Field to the Henry Louis Hank Aaron Baseball Complex to waive certain provisions of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances and for other purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Linda. I know Councilman Overstreet's not here today. I will make the motion to approve. Can I get a second? Second, Amos. Any discussion? Hearing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Motion is favorable, 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Next item.
Next item, Mr. Chair, is item number 8. This is 22-1248. This is an ordinance by Councilmember Marcy Colley Overstreet extending the fiscal year 2019 Emergency Solutions Grant agreements with Covenant House, Georgia, Lakewood FSC, Osea Feed the Hungry, Travels Aid of Metro Atlanta, Homeless Prevention, Travels Aid of Metro Atlanta, Rapid Rehousing, Travels Aid of Metro Atlanta, Outreach, Nicholas House, Salvation Army, and Making a Way Housing to extend the contractual agreements and to ratify prior services and for other purposes. And Mr. Chair, we do have an amendment that will correct the additional amounts that were reflected in the legislation.
Thank you so much. I will go ahead and make the motion to amend. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Amos. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
The motion to amend is adopted, 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. I believe Commissioner Deborah Alon is with us today. How you doing today, Commissioner Alon?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you. This particular ordinance is simply to permit our ESG service providers who are funded under the FY19 grant funds an opportunity to expend those funds through the end of April. We have an extension from HUD that permits us to do so.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve. Can I get a second? Motion by Dozier, second by Westmoreland. Any discussion? Hearing none, please open the vote.
One moment. Mr. Chair, can you just repeat the first and the mover and the seconder, please?
I I moved, and I believe it was Westmoreland who seconded.
Thank you, sir. The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Motion is favorable, 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Next item.
Next item, Mr. Chair, is item number 10. We've already concluded item number 9. Item number 10, Mr. Chair, has the change in the caption. If you can please bring that amendment forward so I can reach the amended caption.
Please go ahead.
If I can have bring the amendment forward so I can read the amended caption.
All right, I'll make the motion to bring that forward. Can I get a second? Motion is seconded by Westmoreland.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions.
This is an ordinance by council members Jason Dozier, Jason Winston, Keisha Sean Waits, and Lillian Bakhtiari, as amended by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend 22-1068 and authorizing the mayor on behalf of the city of Atlanta to enter into a housing assistance payments contract with Southside Medical Center Legacy House to amend the contract amount not to exceed $197,328 to an amount not to exceed $156,437.49 for the purpose of providing housing and/or services to individuals and families with HIV/AIDS through the Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS program sponsored by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, to ratify Hopwell Housing and services rendered by Southside Medical Center Legacy House between July 1st, 2021 and the execution date of the agreement authorized herein, and correcting the amounts to be charged to and paid from accounts listed herein and for other purposes.
Thank you. I believe Commissioner Lonnie here to speak to this.
Yes, sir. In our initial submission to council, we had an amount not to exceed $197,328. We fine-tuned that amount, and we've also corrected the funding source, and that's the ask in this amendment.
Thank you. I will go ahead and make the motion to amend. Can I get a second? Motion by Dozier, second by Westmoreland. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. Yeah, this is approved as amended. This is to be approved as amended, Mr. Chair. Just
Thank you for the clarification.
will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
Motion is favorable as amended, 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. All right, next item.
Next item, Mr. Chair, is 2020-1257. This is an ordinance by Councilmember Jason Dozier amending the fiscal year 2019 Emergency Solutions Grant Agreement with Gateway Center in the amount of $194,000 and transferring to Gateway Center from appropriations in an amount not to exceed $194,000 for the purpose of reprogramming Emergency Solutions Grant funding to extend the contractual agreement with Gateway Center to ratify prior services and for other purposes. And we do have an amendment, Mr. Chair, to correct the amount listed in the initial draft of the legislation.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. I'll make the motion to amend. Can I get a second? Second, Hillis. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
The motion to amend is favorable, 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Commissioner Lonnie.
Lastly, this is also regarding our FY19 ESG funds from HUD, And what we were able to do was determine which agencies were unable to expend their funds, and we reprogrammed those to Gateway, and Gateway will expend those funds by the end of April, and then the city will draw down the funds.
Thank you. I'll motion to approve as amended. Can I get a second? Second, Winston. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
The motion to approve as amended is favorable, 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. All right, next item, we're on to resolutions. Ms. Lindo, please read the first caption.
Mr. Chair, that's 22R 3343. This is a resolution by Councilmember Matt Westmoreland to enter into an agreement with the United States Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration to remove all federal interests associated with EDA award number listed herein, currently capitalizing the Phoenix Loan Fund and for other purposes. And Mr. Chair, we do have an amendment just to attach the Exhibit A, which is just a summary of the act.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. I'll make the motion to amend. Can I get a second? Second, Westmoreland. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Motion to amend is approved. 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Is Mr. Sabor here with us? Come on up to the podium if you could. And just for the public's edification, we have Mr. Lonnie Sapor, who is the Director of Small Business Development with Invest Atlanta. Mr. Sabor, if there's anything to add to this resolution, we'd love to hear that.
Just a little history, Mr. Chair. So the Economic Development Administration, EDA, in its efforts to streamline reporting requirements for itself and established organizations who have not received any new direct EDA funding over the last 7 years, will be able to remove all federal interests and reporting associated with the EDA awards. The Phoenix Loan Fund, which was established by Invest Atlanta's predecessor organization, the Atlanta Economic Development Corporation, for the city of Atlanta, 25 years ago, as a matter of fact, had a successful record over that time frame, and has also been very active in terms of seeking and working with the EDA over the years. Thus, the fact that we've backed the program for 25 years successfully without any problems at all, we think this is going to be a good move for not only EDA but also for Invest Atlanta, the city of Atlanta, in terms of minimizing reporting documentation.
Thank you, Mr. Sabor. I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve as amended. Can I get a second? Second, Winston. Please open the vote.
The vote is open, Mr. Chair. The vote is closed.
The motion to approve as amended is favorable, 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Next item.
Thank you.
Next item, Mr. Chair, is item number 13. That's 22R 3391. This is a resolution by Community Development and Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor or designee on behalf of the city of Atlanta to accept a donation from Empire Communities to the Department of Parks and Recreation for improvements valued at approximately $115,500, which includes sidewalk, landscape, and hardscape improvements at Lang Carson Park and for other purposes.
Thank you. Commissioner Dargle, if you could speak to this a little bit.
Thank you, Chairman Dozier. This resolution authorizes the acceptance of a donation from Empire Communities improvements at Lane Carson Park, valued at approximately $115,000, which will include some site work, as well as new walkways, play amenities, a pollinator garden, and landscaping. Empire Communities has developments in several Atlanta neighborhoods, and has worked with the Friends of Lane Carson Park and presented at our Parks Design Review team for approval. And so we're asking council to approve this donation of site work at Lane Carson Park. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner Dargo. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve. Can I get a second? Second, Hillis. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. The motion is favorable. Thank you, Commissioner Dargo. Next, we have papers held in committee. I believe we're removing items 16, 20, 21, 22, 27, 29, and 33.
Mr. Chair, if I may, before we go to the held items, I have prepared an amendment for council members' bond paper. Would you like to go back to that?
Yes, absolutely. Please do.
So the amendment, I believe we had a motion to amend, and you wanted language for the amendment. So the amendment will delete the blank spaces and insert a dollar amount of $10,490.62 in the legislation.
Thank you. And I believe the motion to amend was made by Councilmember Bond, so we're still looking for a second. I'll make the second. Any discussion?
I have one question, actually. I'm worried about precedents. Has this ever been done to where a council office has been reimbursed for things provided through the council office?
Yes.
All right. Councilman Westmoreland.
There's still a blank in Section 3. It doesn't explain where the dollars are coming from. It's an observation. I'm going to support the vote to amend the paper with a yes that lasts all the way to the end, but I'm still not comfortable moving this paper forward today.
Any other discussion? All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
All right, the motion to amend is approved, 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. I'll entertain a motion to approve as amended.
So move.
Motion by Bond. Can I get a second?
The vote is open.
I'll make the second. I don't know if
Mr. Bond made.
You made the motion. I was entertaining a second, but I'll go ahead and make the second. Please open the vote.
I actually have another question before I read.
Go ahead.
You never asked me.
Councilman Amos.
It's actually the same question. As much as I love my colleague, Councilmember Bond, I need someone from finance, because I'm still not ready, because if it is as easy as us to live within our means on council and then come back and ask to be reimbursed, especially as my other colleague pointed out the fact that we don't know where we are attempting to reimburse this money from, I need someone from the administration to say that this has been done before, and probably someone from, well, I guess we make the laws. I'm going to say someone from the law department to tell me what type of slippery slope we're on, to where we're not looking at 12 different papers come 2 years from now of council members asking to be reimbursed.
Is there anyone that can speak to, I don't know if that would be the law department or from the administration that could speak to this?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, council members. Theo Pace, Deputy Chief of Staff, Office of the Mayor. I would defer to the Finance Department as to, I don't know where this particular funding would come from. It was not a piece of legislation drafted by the administration. It came from the council members, so I don't know where would be the appropriate funding that this would come from. I don't, Councilmember Bond spoke previously as to this has occurred before. I'm not aware of any previous circumstances or anything like that. Each council office is appropriating an annual budget for office expenses that they serve at their pleasure to fund office initiatives. So,
Thank you, Mr. Pace. Any other comments or additional questions during discussion? Councilmember Bond.
Yes, thank you. This council just voted to support this a week ago at the council meeting. We made the HelloFresh program a citywide program, and we made it retroactive back to August. So it is the policy of the city of Atlanta. Reimbursements have happened, in my experience on the council, dating back to 1994, where a council office might hold an event jointly with the administration, and then they get reimbursed for that amount. So it has occurred before in the history of my service. Those reimbursements in the past weren't exclusively out of my office either. And so, as I stated earlier, Ms. Kempson-Wright is preparing a substitute in which the line item for the funding will be identified. You gentlemen intimated to me that you needed the number of what the reimbursement would be, and I provided that number, and I've got copies of the invoices and copies from our staff. I guess it should be attached to the legislation. We'd have a friendly amendment to do that we just attach those invoices to it. And so the numbers would be there. The motion is actually to move it on with no recommendation. It's not to approve it. And so all these issues will be addressed within the Finance Committee on tomorrow. I think my word is good for 24 hours, I would hope. Having served with you all and some of you previously, I don't know what else to say other than, I'm just surprised by the recalcitrance that I've seen from some colleagues.
Any other points of discussions or questions? All right, hearing none, please open the vote. And as Councilmember Bond mentioned, this is a motion to refer to Finance Executive Committee.
Mr. Chair, I believe we had a motion to approve the amendment of inserting the $10,000 and 40.
There you go.
No, but Mr. Approve as amendment.
Yes, motion to refer, no recommendation. Yes, a do.
Right, just to clarify, I believe it's a motion to refer as amended. And I believe Councilmember Bond's motion, I seconded, and the vote is now open.
So this is to forward as amended with no recommendation?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, we have 3 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. The motion is not carried. Next item. Just for the clarification for the public, when there's a tie, it is held in committee.
Thank you, the 3 yeas, myself included.
I believe we are on
Hold items, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. And so for papers held in committee, I stated this earlier, but I believe we're removing items 16, 20, 21, 22, 27, 29, and 33.
Item number 16, Mr. Chair, is 22-0-1041. This is CDP 21-4 046, this is substitute ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located 559, 565, and 569 10th Street Northwest from the low-density residential 0 to 8 unit per acre land use designation to the mixed-use medium-density land use designation, and for other purposes, this is NPUE in Council District 3.
Thank you so much. We have Jessica Lavenier, Deputy Director of Planning, with us today. If you could speak to this legislation.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Dozier, for giving me the opportunity to speak on this. So this is a land use amendment that's being done in conjunction with the rezoning of the parcel. These three parcels are on the north side of 10th Street between Hemp Hill and Northside Drive. Georgia Tech is on the south side. I wanted to remind you 10th Street is a collector street, so it carries a fair amount of traffic. This was included in the Home Park Master Plan in an area that they call the mixed-use district. And the vision for the mixed-use district is to have a compact blend of converted industrial buildings, traditional housing, neighborhood-oriented retail, and pedestrian-oriented development. So this development proposes to build a four-story building with 33 residential units and some retail on the ground floor. So if you are familiar with the area, it's dominated by single-family homes and large multifamily development. So this offers a new housing type in the area. So given the recommendation of the master plan, the location on the collector street, and surrounding next to it is the Tech Square commercial use, staff recommends approval of this land use amendment. This was before NPUE, and they voted to not support the land use amendment.
Thank you, Ms. Lavenier. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Moved by Amos. All second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Will everyone please vote?
Point of order. I'll vote when it shows the correct thing I'm voting for on the screen. It still shows we're on Councilmember Bond's legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Thank you, Mr. Hillis. Correct. It's frozen. One moment. Thank you. The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the motion to approve is favorable. 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Next item.
Next item, Mr. Chair, is item number 20. This is 2020-1063. This is CDP 21055. This is an ordinance by Councilmember Andrew Boone to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 257 Oak Cliff Road Northwest from the single-family residential land use designation to low-density residential land use designation, and for other purposes, this is NPUH in Council District 10.
Ms. Lavenier?
Yes, thank you. So we worked with NPUH for about a year to develop a vision for their community, and out of that, one of the recommendations was to focus mixed-use development along Fairburn Road, MLK, Bolton Road. These were areas appropriate for commercial development, but also multifamily and higher density development. This 20-acre parcel is surrounded by single family. It'll be accessed by a local street that just has single family. So we believe that development of this 20-acre parcel with retail, townhomes, and multifamily is not the appropriate location for this development. That it should be closer to the main corridors and NPUH. So staff recommends denial of this land use amendment. However, the NPU did recommend approval of that.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion. I'll make the motion to approve. Second, Westmoreland. Please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Point of order. Is this to approve the denial or to approve the project?
My understanding is that it's to approve the redesignation from single-family residential to low-density residential. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's the land use amendment that is being requested, and staff recommends denial of the land use amendment.
Mr. Chair, although staff recommend denial, the council, a member for the district, has approved the zoning aspect of it to travel along with the land use.
Thank you.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
And the motion is favorable, 4 yeas, 1 nay, 1 abstention. Next item.
Next item, Mr. Chair, is item number 21. This is 22-1064. This is CDP 21057. It's an ordinance by Councilmember Andrew L. Boone to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 1411 South Gordon Street Southwest from the single-family residential land use designation to the low-density commercial land use designation and for other purposes. This is NPUT, Council District 10.
Yes, thank you. So this is a residential parcel built with a 1920s home on South Gordon. This is in the Westview neighborhood. The Westview neighborhood plan, they wanted to focus commercial development on their neighborhood commercial nodes further up on RDA and also at the corner of Cascade and RDA. And they wanted, the plan recommended keeping the residential parcels with a residential zoning and land use. So in support of the plan recommendation, staff recommends denial of this land use amendment. This would be the only residential parcel used as residential with a residential building that would have this non-residential use. So the NPUT recommended approval of this land use amendment.
The recommended action before the body is actually to a motion to adverse. I will make that motion. Can I get a second? Second by Winston. Any discussion? Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote?
The motion carried. The motion is favorable. 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. It is adverse. Next item.
Next item, Mr. Chair, is item number 26. This is 22-1176. Mr. Chair, this legislation has a substitute which changes the caption. So if I can bring the substitute forward.
Please.
With the motion, please.
Oh, sorry. I'll make the motion to bring the substitute forward. Second by Hillis. Open. Any discussion? None. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
Substitute is adopted. 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions.
This is 22-1176. It's a substitute ordinance by Councilmember Jason Dozier authorizing the appropriation of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act Grant Awards fiscal year 21-36 adult, fiscal year 21 dislocated worker, and project year 20 youth in the amount of $597,551.54 of eligible total funds which have been previously awarded but not previously allocated to support cooperative agreement FC 1190582, the Workforce Service Delivery, providing adult dislocated worker and youth services on behalf of the Atlanta Workforce Development Agency, the Department of Procurement to issue a purchase order in the amount of $597,551.54 to pay outstanding invoices under the agreement and for other purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Lindell. We have Ms. Amy Lancaster-King with Workforce Atlanta. Thank you for bearing with us on this very long Wednesday.
Yes, happy to do it. It feels like Wednesday, so I think you were right. So I brought Marcos Pope, our Director of Finance, to help answer any questions that you may have. But at a very high level, this is somewhat of a cleanup bill. There was a contract extension, a short-term extension for about a quarter. That when the extension was legislated, they did not identify funding stream for our grants at the time to go with that. And so this kind of goes and assigns the available funding streams that work with the same period of performance. And Marcos, anything you want to add for that?
She said it correctly. With the way our grants end, you have to make sure that the appropriate awards are aligned with it for the period of performance. So that's what this legislation does.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve as substituted. Can I get a second? Second by Hillis. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote?
Motion is favorable, the motion to approve as substituted is favorable, 5 ayes, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. Thank you. Next item.
Next item, Mr. Chair, is item number 29. This is 220-1148. This is CDP 22002. This is an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 2051, 2085, and 2095 Marietta Boulevard Northwest from the industrial land use designation to the mixed-use medium density land use designation, and for other purposes. This is NPUD and Council District 9.
Thank you. Ms. Lavendier?
Yes, thank you. For this, I wanted to bring back some of the things that Invest Atlanta mentioned last time, how they're trying to bring more middle wage jobs into the city. So the city has a lot of high-paying jobs for residents and Metro Atlanta residents that have a college education, and they have a lot of low-paying jobs for people that don't have a college education. But we don't have a lot of good-paying jobs for people that don't have a college education, those middle-wage jobs. And a lot of people have to travel outside the city to Douglas or Henry or Gwinnett to achieve those jobs. So we have, I think, about 70% of city residents commuting out of the city. So a lot of those middle-wage jobs that are construction, manufacturing, warehousing, and transportation. And all of those jobs require an industrial land use. So we really need the industrially zoned parcels to be able to have the jobs that provide a middle wage in the city for City of Atlanta residents. So parallel to that, if you think of everything you need every day, when you go to the grocery store, or if you're doing something on your house, or if you're buying furniture, all of that requires that item be in an industrially zoned land before it makes it to a retail location, before it goes to your house. So we need industrial for our day-to-day operation. Even though a lot of people find it objectionable, we couldn't function as a city without having industrial land. And now during the pandemic, as you know, there's been an increase in e-commerce. So now there's even more of a need for industrial, for those warehouses for just-in-time delivery. And being that we're next to, we have big employment centers, big residential areas, a lot of the businesses try to be close by so they can deliver those goods nearby to the population. So through the comprehensive plan, we have supported retaining industrial in the city, particularly in the Chattahoochee Industrial District, that supports a lot of local businesses and employs a lot of City of Atlanta residents. And even though these parcels have truck parking facility that's essential to continue trucking, provide trucking services. We do not support continuing erosion of our industrial land uses. In addition, next to a half a mile from this site, in the former railroad corridor, there's a construction of 1.5 million square feet of warehousing, and they're going to generate 4,000 trips. 1,600 of those trips are going to be truck trips. They're going to be traveling Marietta Boulevard to reach their destination, and will be impacting development or these potential residents with truck traffic, noise, and vibration. So we don't believe that this is an appropriate location to build, the 350 multifamily units, 500 townhomes, and 7,000 square feet of space. That type of development we recommend be located along major corridors and near transit, like Northside Drive, Peachtree Street. So there are appropriate locations for this type of development, but not in an industrial area that's about to see 4,000 new car trips. So staff recommends denial of this land use amendment. MPUD supported this land use amendment.
I do have a quick question for you. Recognizing that protection of industrial corridors is important, but also recognizing that Atlanta is going through a pretty significant housing shortage, and we need to address that. Was there any discussion of whether IMIX would have been an appropriate use of it in this particular case, and what staff had potentially supported in that instance if it were to be IMIX?
So I don't believe that it was brought up at that case, but if there's let me just say that this was included in a new Upper West Side plan, and they recommended IMIX for other parts of the Chattahoochee. They recommended maintaining industrial zoning on Marietta Boulevard. So I think there are appropriate locations for IMIX, but that was not recommended for this. And this was also in the Bolton LCI that was done many years ago, and that plan recommended live work. So the recent plan and an older plan did not recommend changing the land use for this parcel. But yeah, we've been trying to find appropriate locations to have small operators that have food production or something that supports IMIX and residential, but that wasn't the case for here.
Thank you. Councilmember Hillis. It's been a long day, y'all.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate Ms. Lavender's comments, but not disagree with a number of them. Number one, I disagree, as I have since before being on council, with the city planning department's blanket recommendation almost of always denying industrial zoning rezonings from industrial zoning. Marietta Boulevard is in the period of transition, just like how Mill Road was 5-10 years ago. Marietta Boulevard is a gateway to the city. People should be able to see investment when they come into the city, not a paving company, a Napa Auto Parts store, and a business that for the past, I guess, 6 years have had Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene buses in their parking lots. I've met with the developer, with the neighborhood, with the MPU, and they're all very supportive of this rezoning and looking forward to the investment that this is going to bring. You mentioned construction jobs. This is going to bring construction jobs to the city. So ask for my colleagues' support, just like I had my colleagues' support from the former council on rezoning the other side of Marietta Boulevard that's directly across from this future development. So request your support, and thank you.
That sounds like a motion. Motion Hillis, all second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Point of order,
Please vote.
Hillis was the mover on that one. And the vote is favorable, 4 yeas, 1 nay, 0 abstentions. Next item.
Last item from held, Mr. Chair, is 22R 3253. It's a resolution by Council Members Jason Dozier, William Bakhtiari, and Keisha Shawn Waits, as substituted by the Community Development and Human Services Committee, amending the City of Atlanta's 2018 Annual Action Plan under its 2015 to 2019 Consolidated Plan for the purpose of reprogramming activities from the 2019 Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS funding to the 2018 HOPWA funding, and drawing down the balance of the city's 2018 HOPWA funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and for other purposes.
Thank you. Commissioner Wannen.
Yes,
Almost done.
I left earlier because I thought I was done. This item was presented, sir, because we are drawing down the balance of our FY18 HOPWA funding, and we had to hold it for the public comment period, and in essence it will permit us to draw down the balance that I presented last week, about $8.5 million in the totality of remaining FY18 HOPWA funds.
Thank you. Any questions for Commissioner Wannen? Seeing none. Was that a move for Westmoreland? Move approval. I'll second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote's closed.
Motion is favorable, 6 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Also, I believe there will be a public hearing on this item at the April 18th City Council meeting.
Yes, sir.
So just for the public, be on the lookout for that. Thank you so much, Commissioner Wannen.
Thank you.
All right, next item, walk-in legislation. I don't believe we have any items for walk-in legislation. Next item is requested items. We do have a few of these that were submitted from the Invest Atlanta team. Colleagues, you should have received that in your email. Provide an update on how much funding is remaining in the Housing Opportunity Fund. Provide a copy of the Economic Empowerment and Equity Agreement. Please provide the number of affordable housing units that were included in the TAB projects mentioned in the quarterly report, and send the federally defined vulnerable population for workforce funding eligibility. That should be in your inbox. Last item before we adjourn, I want to open to any announcements from the body. Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On tomorrow, HelloFresh at the Greater Piney Grove Baptist Church at 1921 Glenwood Avenue, Southeast, at 3 p.m. I'll be partnering with Councilwoman Liliana Bakhtiari in her district, and so we encourage those of us who are within the sound of my voice to come and participate. There's no prerequisite to receive this benefit. We distribute about 8,000 meals a week through our partners, and this will be at Greater Piney Grove for in-person and walk-up pickup, and that's at 3 p.m. at Greater Piney Grove Baptist Church, 1921 Glenwood Avenue, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bond. Any other announcements? I have two quick ones. The first is that on April the 14th, Thursday, District 4 will be hosting our very first District 4 Community Town Hall. It will go from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. We will be doing that Town Hall hybrid, so we will be in person at Dunbar Neighborhood Center at 477 Richardson Street in Mechanicsville. We will be providing both dinner and child care, so come one, come all. But if you still aren't comfortable coming to an in-person event, we are going to be doing that hybrid. So you'll be able to ask and submit questions during that event. And then my other announcement, City Council will begin its spring recess next Monday, April 4th, and that will go through April 15th. Meetings will resume on Monday, April 18th, so that'll be the full council meeting. And then the next Community Development and Human Services Committee meeting will be held on Tuesday, April 26th at 1:30 p.m. Without objection, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.